Taking
Bonjour,
this
comment ça
live.
va? Oui, très bien.
We control the horizontal and the vertical.
All right, the live is coming.
Your call is important to us.
Yeah, please stay on the line. Somebody will be with you shortly. Your estimated wait time is
Thanks for calling Max on support.
500 minutes. All right.
You got Camp Mograph stuff on there too?
Yep. Yeah. Come on, YouTube Cash. Do the thing. Shareable link is up. Ready for the bat signal. At channel. Bam. Do you want to send it now? Alright. That's good. The bat signal's up. Let's share the Facebooks. Oh. Got
Hello,
it.
Christina from Bernie.
Chris H. Mason Impulse. Okay, sharing this. It's unshared. My timeline. Okay. Let's go to our faces. Looks like we're
I'll tell
ready
you
to
what,
do a
these-
show.
These Bernie people like to text me a lot. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. I always tell them I can't help, but I will vote for Bernie.
Well, there you go.
So that's what I do.
Cristobal,
Hello.
Tesla
A
Rock.
lot of people.
Hello, people. Hello.
Boy, I didn't
good
even know we
peoples.
were live. I mean, you
told
said
you.
we were live, but
I
I
told
didn't
you we were
realize
live.
that. I didn't realize we were already this far. Sorry.
Yeah, we're about to do
Okay,
this.
sorry, I'm sharing.
Good. If you guys want to hit record.
I'm recording. I was recording.
Now we got a whole bunch of nothing at the beginning. Way to go.
I'm recording
This
as
is cheap.
well. Check 1 2, check 1 2.
Come on, why can't I get to YouTube?
Hey, check 1 2. All right. You don't need no stinking YouTube.
You don't need no stinking YouTube. There we
You don't know me. I'm not quiet now, am I?
I do know you. I know you
am
quite well.
Am I quiet now? It didn't change, did it? Am I good?
No, I thought I heard something a second ago. Man, my computer's
Let me
being
just-
stupid.
Make sure.
Hello, chat room.
There we go.
Mason.
Hello.
Impulse. Tess.
Yeah.
Cristobal.
Hello, everyone.
Chris.
Yeah, we're good.
Bonjour, comment ça va? Oui, très bien.
I am able to read.
All right, we are all rolling. Let's do a sync clap. It'll be 1 2 3 clap. Here we go. 1 2 3.
Wow, that
We
actually sounded
are
on this time.
synced. Yeah, y'all sound good.
It's because we're all in Texas.
It's true.
There's less ping
Hello,
or whatever the
Sudhir Kumar. I got the first two names. I'm not gonna try and.
Humpty.
Humpty. Hoppity. You're looking forward to this one, huh? All right, good.
Right.
Don't get your hopes
So
Oh,
up.
I'm
am
sorry.
I.
You're gonna be disappointed by me. I don't know. Maybe after this Monster Energy drink. This episode's sponsored
Not
by
Mr.
Monster
Albert.
Energy drink. All right.
I don't know, I've been drinking Mountain Dew Zero. It's pretty good.
Mm.
Mountain Dew Zero?
Oh man.
Mhm.
It's not Diet Mountain Dew. It's Mountain Dew
They're
Zero.
phasing Diet Mountain Dew out.
Diet Mountain
Really?
Dew is with
Disappointed.
NutraSweet.
How is Mountain Dew Zero?
It's like Coke. And I get it's another brand.
Coke
but
Zero is
Right.
good.
It's similar to Coke Zero in that well, it tastes like Coke Zero. It's very confusing.
It just tastes like Coke Zero.
It secretly is
It's
Coke
not
Zero.
even like It's not even green. It's actually the
Yeah.
color of Coke
No,
Zero.
it's slightly more regular Mountain Dewy.
Okay. I'll have to try that out because I love Mountain Dew. I don't like the diet Mountain Dew, and I can't do the calories. I'll tell you what, if they came up with a Surge Zero, oh man, I'd be
Oh,
all over
man.
that. But it's hard enough just to find Surge as it is.
It's called
I can't
Monsters.
do
It's
Surge.
called White Monster. That's Surge Zero.
No, that doesn't.
I actually there is a Diet Surge, but I've only seen it in freestyle machines,
Uh-huh.
so you can find it. I think the last one I had was at Burger King somewhere in between here.
Really?
I was on my way to Nashville and stopped for
funny.
lunch.
All right, let's do a show.
Let's do a show. We're all rolling. I think we're good. Everybody keep an eye on your waveform. We've talked about all the
Got
things
full
ahead of
night's sleep.
time.
You know,
You
with
did.
the cat jumping on me. No, man,
Full night's
I love
sleep.
my cat, but he's old. He needs to go. Like just jumping on me all night long. I'm like, come on, dude, just leave me alone. Just go away.
I just envision like a gif of a cat, like with neon all around him, just going, just jumping on you over and over all night.
Probably right. Yeah.
You could be a
If
meme.
if it's not the cat, it's the baby. If it's not the baby, it's the dog. If it's not the dog, it's the 6-year-old. My wife's
Yeah.
doing great. She doesn't bother me at all.
That
I was gonna
sounds
say.
a lot like my life.
All right.
All right, let's do
a
this.
show.
You ready?
Sorry. All right. Yeah.
What's up and welcome to another Mograph Mocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt, and joining us today, fellow Texan, Mr. Brian Behm.
Hello.
And Mograph is a supplement to our site, mograph.com, which is a motion graphic tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other Mograph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects, plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man. You can email us, info@mograph.com. Let us know what you think about the show, questions, comments, concerns, queries, grievances. And just hit us up. We really want to know, do you like the show? Do you want to hear more of something?
No, we
do
don't
you
want to
not
know
like
that.
the
We don't
show?
wanna know that.
Well, we want to know if you like the show. We don't care if you don't like the show. But
Yeah, if you don't like the show, don't bother us.
yeah, if you don't listen to the show, don't email us.
You shut your mouth when you talk
Yeah,
to me.
yeah, you shut your mouth and you talk to me. If you don't listen to the show, send us an email.
Yeah.
This week, got a couple things on the agenda here to talk about. Number one, let's just talk about updates for Camp Mograph. Do we have any new developments?
Camp Mograph.
More of a retreat.
It's coming up. Coming up. Tickets go on sale in 2 months. 2 months and 10 days. 2 months and 10
420
days.
blaze it.
Better get ready.
Yeah.
So if you're curious about pricing, go on to campmograph.com. Make sure to sign up for our mailing list so that you can get all the updates. We're super excited to bring on board AE scripts, AE plugins as a sponsor again this year. We're super excited to have them back on board as one of our sponsors, as well as all the other amazing sponsors we've got. Maxon, of course, fine makers of Cinema 4D, Redshift, and I don't know if you say Red Giant anymore. I don't know. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna say that. And if they're gonna rebrand and stuff, we're gonna have to change all the logos and stuff. Anyway, I digress. Also, we've got Video Copilot.
Max Giant.
everyone knows- and-
Max Giant,
right?
I'm telling you, that's a good name. Max Giant.
Yeah. I
like
think
Max
they just need to
Power.
stick with Maxon. It should just be Maxon.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway. All right. Video Copilot. Andrew Kramer. We all know him. We all learned from him. We all love him. Super excited to have Video Copilot on board, and of course Otoy, our favorite render engine makers of choice. Otoy, they make Octane Render. Yes, and then one of our gold sponsors, Minimal Massive. Super excited to have them on board because they are a studio based out of Portland.
Mhm.
So sticking it local there, which is fantastic, and we're really excited to have them on board. So shout out to all of our sponsors for Camp Mograph. Camp Mograph tickets go on sale April 20th, 420. Blaze it.
Blaze
It's going to
it.
be awesome. If you're at NAB at the time, just be prepared.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we've done a pre-sale for the previous campers, and we've got another pre-sale for the previous campers as well coming up. So just be aware, if you're looking to get into a treetop village, you're gonna want to act fast because those are pretty popular, you know. So yeah, just be ready.
Yeah.
Be ready to hit that buy button.
Yeah.
So
make sure you mash that buy button.
It's funny, you know, looking at some of these, and when it comes to sponsors and stuff like that, you know, I know there's a few events out there that don't have any sponsors, which is cool for them and all, but like literally we could not do this event without all of these sponsors. You know, the biggest thing with the sponsors is, you know, they're helping cover a lot of the costs that would normally be pushed back onto, you know,
the campers.
Y'all.
Yeah.
To campers, yeah. And so we really like keeping the price super cheap, you know, in comparison. I mean, you're talking 3 days, food, drink, alcohol, you know, a lot, entertainment, all of food and room and board and everything. And it's like for 3 days for an all-inclusive event, like that's unheard of in our industry.
Yeah.
So,
and it's sponsors that allow us to keep those ticket prices down when it comes to just booking campers to be in the camp and allowing it to be just for us. Because what we have to do, you know, keeping it small is what everybody wants us to do. What we want to do, of course, keep it small, keep that feeling. And the only way to do that is to book the whole camp. It doesn't matter if it holds 300 people. You know,
no,
we're
this
not,
camp
you
holds,
know,
I think 400 people, but we're limiting it to about 125 total.
Which means that we have to pay the difference in the ticket price for 400 people.
Yes.
In order to do that. And the only way that we can make up that cost is with sponsors.
Yeah. And so you know, we love these sponsors. They're great. We love having them on board and they're fantastic. So, but yeah, so if you're coming to Camp Mograph, make sure you shout out to all the sponsors, because without them, these ticket prices would be twice as or 3 times, or we wouldn't even be doing it.
And also, Matt, what about if somebody wants to become a sponsor of Camp Mograph?
If someone would like to become a sponsor, you can go to campmograph.com.
I'm glad you asked.
Look down at the bottom. There's interested in sponsorship. You can learn all about it, and prices and everything like that. So, or you can just hit me up straight, matt@mograph.com.
Bam.
And I'll take care of you. Cool.
All right. Some other things are Instagram, and some things are changing a little bit. We're adding some things. We're moving some things around. We're making some changes. We're on TikTok now. First post went up on TikTok, yo. Yeah.
TikTok's a...
Yeah, check it out. I'm not dancing or anything, so don't worry.
Oh, well then it's useless.
Yeah.
Who cares about it now?
Make sure that you check that out. We're doing we've got some new things we're doing with stories and Instagram feeds and stuff like that. So doing these things called podcast frags, which are
podcast frags.
Podcast frags.
Is that the official name?
Yeah.
Or did you come up with that?
No, that's the official name I came up with. It's not even a big deal. It's like not even. I did a little thing that says podcast frags, but it's not like I'm branding it or anything. It's just so you know, this is a clip from the show. Here's a little juicy nug. I almost called it podcast nugs, but that was just too weed centric for me. So I figured, okay, podcast frags. If you check out, it'll be coming up on our stories. It's going to be on YouTube. You can find it in all the places. Eventually, you can go watch a whole playlist of it, you know, on YouTube if you want. But these are just great little moments from the show. I know not everybody listens to every show in its entirety. Some, you know, our episodes are pretty long, and sometimes it's like, oh, I really want to hear Barton speak. I'm going to listen to this show, and sometimes not. And what I'm trying to do is put some nugs out there, some frags, of just good little bits of information, you know, so you can check that out. If you liked it and you want to hear a little bit more from that person, you know, you can go check out the episode. It gives a link to that episode and whatnot. So that's something different that we're doing. Just making some changes. We've got some other things coming out. I'm going to be doing a series as well. I'm going to be starting tutorials. Got a bunch of stuff I'm writing for that. Also doing some stuff that's like more for noobs. More for noobs in the industry. If you know young creatives or even kids.
Or ones who aren't even in the industry yet, who are wanting to get in. You know, it's funny, like, every time you and I chat about this, I always think about my first interaction with 3D. It was, I was already out of college. I was 22 years old. And I went to a Learn 3D for little kids,
Nice.
site,
Uh-huh.
and I learned a little bit of Lightwave, and it's like they taught you step by step how to do the program, and it was very cool, and it was just for kids. I was like, all right, cool. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's just something that you can send people that you might know, like the one that I'm going to put out. It's going to coincide with our late night render thing that we're trying to put together with some render people for anybody who wants to learn more. If you're brand new in the industry, the first thing that might go through your mind is, oh, well, which is the best render engine? And there's not a good answer for that. And so I'm doing a little piece on that for people who don't quite understand that concept yet. It's not because they're dumb. It's because they're new. They're new to the industry. And a thing like, what's a keyframe? Things like that. Just very simple explanations for people who don't, or just completely new and just are like, I love this. I love seeing this stuff, but I don't know how to get started. I'm going to try and do a little bit of that and see if it works, if it's popular, if there are people that it will help. Hopefully that's the point, So, your friend might hit you up and be like, man, that 3D thing is really cool. How do I get into that? What is a render engine?
Just the past 2 weeks, I've had 2 people tell me, I've got a cousin he's in what's it, where like they're building interactive design.
Okay. Yeah.
He does that for like big art or whatchamacallit, like museums and stuff like that, and he said, hey, I want to try this out. And then just literally like yesterday, a buddy of mine was like, hey, I need to build a computer. I'm moving over to Motion 100%, for my job. I was like, dude, you need to learn Cinema 4D. He's like, all right, send me some links. It's like, all the time in this industry, you'll get someone who wants to learn. And, that's the great thing about this, we as teachers, educators, whatever, is in people who are influencing the future of Cinema 4D people, like being able to have something like that. Because a lot of the places that I'm sending people are years old, It's like, oh yeah, go check out this thing from R15.
Right.
From,
right.
6 years ago that Dave did.
Yeah, we got to redo all of that. But yeah, look for that stuff. Also, we're doing more and more news on our site as well. We had an article that went up this week on this short film by Bomper Studios called Coffee Run. There's some
really good,
really great character animation in this, and they used a lot of different programs. But for the rigging of the character, they use Cinema 4D's character tools, but they do all this stuff with what do they call it? Smears. Like, and this guy takes off. There are these crazy smears and stretches and everything else.
Yeah.
So this article kind of breaks it down. It shows the rigging. It shows how they did some of the smears and things like that. So, check that out. News on the site. You can also check out events and start planning. Start planning this year. In the events section, we have the information right now on ABC DFW C4D, which is March 22nd and 23rd. Make sure that you come to Dallas for that. Fly out, come check it out. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be so much fun, and there's also Signal, which is the week before.
Yeah.
I should put it the other way. I guess, keep it in order.
Yeah, you should.
That's okay. The other one's your event.
That's
Signal's
true.
my event.
I'll pin our event to the top, I guess, huh? But yeah, Signal is coming up, and this is a good way to sandwich your South by Southwest if you're going to be in Texas.
Yeah, totally.
Go to Signal, go to South by, and then come up to Dallas and hang out with us. That'll be a lot of fun, and of course, pretty soon we're going to be planning NAB. There's going to be more information, like the schedule and all this other info. I've been working on so much stuff behind the scenes, like 18 hours a day.
If you're planning on NAB, I would recommend flying in either Friday night or Saturday morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Saturday is
shifted
going
by
to be
day.
the big Mograph meetup and stuff like that, and you definitely don't want to miss that. So Saturday morning, which is great about Saturday because it's always cheaper to fly in on Saturday, especially the morning.
So we're going to do the Vegas thing with I've already been working on all the graphics and everything we need for the interviews and all that. And of course the buttons You're going to see some posts about the buttons. We're going to do like a little sign up thing to turn in your avatar that you want for the buttons. So make sure that you keep an eye out for that. Check the newsletter, all of that, because I think we're going to be making a lot of buttons this year for everybody. So that'll be great.
Julie's gonna be making
Right, that's true.
Y'all will be up until 4 a.m. the night before we leave again.
We're gonna limit them. I think it's only gonna be 10 buttons a person. I think we need to set a limit. And
the fact that you're still doing 10 buttons, like literally the whole point of it was just one button so that everyone knew what each other's avatar is, and then it ended up everyone was just collecting each other's buttons.
Yeah, I think what we're gonna do probably is like one bigger button that is
that's a good idea.
Your button, and then the small one. Yeah, so I think we'll do it that way. But Brian, tell us about Signal. Let's talk about Signal for a second.
Yeah, well, we're still coming at Signal sort of comes together at the last minute, so we're still in the process of assembling it. But it is a way for, so I do South by. I love South by, and it's an amazing thing. But I always feel like the people who come to town for South by, there's a big title design competition every year that's part of South by Film. And so there's a lot of, great title designers that we know that, are active in the industry, people like Jeremy Cox, people like James Ramirez, who come to town for South by. And there was not really ever any way for them to get a chance to interact with the Austin motion design community. And so last year, my friend Charles Pierce and I decided that we needed to kind of fix that. I was also in the process of launching my little side project, and turns out it's much easier to get people to show up for a party than it is for an art show. And so So I put together the Signal event, with it secretly being my art show.
Art show disguised as a party.
It was like, yeah, I mean,
the way to do it.
Totally.
It's like, there were definitely multiple purposes, but
see, now you need to sell timeshares as well.
Yeah.
Reel them in with a party, sell them some timeshares.
Get that Amway pitch in there.
While you're here, so there's free beer, but in exchange for the free beer, I need you to listen to this 15-minute presentation.
Only take 15 minutes.
There's no pressure at all, except for the fact that we're locking you in this room until you.
That's funny.
So we did this first thing, and it ended up going really well, and we had a couple hundred people show up, and there's sort of a yin yang thing about it. A big part of my life in Austin has become more about how I can help the community organize a little bit. One of the other things that had originally been the impetus for this event is that, I feel like there's a real split in Austin between the graphic design community and the motion design community. And honestly, I feel like that's probably a global thing in a way. I feel like motion artists in a lot of ways, and this is, something as an identity I've wrestled with my whole career, is just like, am I a production person, or am I a designer, or am I an artist? And I've been very reticent throughout my career to feel like I'm an artist. But that expands out into the community too. And so AIGA, American Institute of Graphic Arts here in Austin, that design community, there's not a lot of interaction between the motion artists and the graphic designers. And so it's just like, how do I start to do something that can start to build some bridges, across those communities by creating a third space where, we can invite people in and say, hey, look, here's the things that we're doing. And we're designers too. We're designers, we're artists. And, we care about the work that you do. And we want you to come spend time with us. And so we do 2 events a year. We have our event, that falls during the first part of South by, but is not related to South by. And then we've got another event. There's another big thing in Austin every year called East, the East Austin Studio Tour, which is a big fine arts thing. And we do another event then, because it's also a way for us to reach out to the fine arts community and say, hey, look, we're here and we're also artists. And, starting to kind of look more at the animation community here in Austin too, because we're at a point now in Austin where we've got 4 or 5 legitimate animation studios doing broadcast animation. You've got Powerhouse, who's doing Castlevania. You've got Minnow Mountain that did Amazon's Undone. I don't know if you saw Undone this year. It's fascinating. Probably one of the best things that I watched last year. Just a great show. And all that rotoscope animation was done here in town. Rooster Teeth, where I used to work, they're doing a lot of animation. The Pigeon Spy movie that came out recently was originally a short film by the founder of a studio here in town called Mighty Coconut. And Mighty Coconut's busy working on a film right now. And so there's all these animation studios and, all those animation people. And, I'm sure that we can relate to this as motion artists. We disappear down our work holes and, we don't get a chance to see people as often either. And so, Signal is a way to create a couple events a year where, we can try and do what we can to start building some of those bridges. We call them signal occurrences.
I like that.
But, how do we transmit out to people and, let everyone know who is here and, how to do a better job of creating some of that mixing between groups so that maybe something new comes about.
Well, it's inspirational sometimes to be in a situation where you're doing different stuff, you're seeing different stuff. Example is I saw Jan Sodeko was posting some Instagrams and Facebook stories yesterday or today, and he's at this really cool looking art show, and had some really cool looking stuff. If you're friends with him, go check that out.
Taped to the wall,
right? But if you go check that out, like there were some really cool looking deals at that show, and I'm like, man, that's kind of fun because you might get some ideas of something to do in 3D, and when you cross between these different similar industries but not exactly the same, it really can help you like brainstorm, talk with people, get some ideas of what you can do. I mean, you've got people who are doing art, who are doing interactive, all of that, and it was such a chill scene too. I don't know, is it in the same location this year?
So this year, so I'm really excited. It is not in the same location. We are taking over Austin's Children's Museum, the Thinkery. And so it's going to be a little bigger. We're also kind of focusing this year on things going on in Texas overall. So it's trying to kind of shine a spotlight on, just production in general. I have some people in town that I work with and care a lot about called Media ATX, who are also trying to do some of that same sort of thing, connecting the different media verticals in town, because the news people don't talk to the design people, don't talk to the film people, and so they're coming on board to kind of work with us and the Texas Association of Business, and so it's gonna be a little bit bigger, but hopefully, at the end of the day, it's definitely about being chill. We want to throw a very Austin idea of a party, and so, that means, you have some music, you have some beer, there's some teaching, but, it might be more like a punk rock show where you're standing up and kind of just catching just a sample of it.
Like that. Mosh pits. Will there be mosh pits?
Yeah.
I'm talking to a couple of punk bands, so maybe.
Sweet.
Although it's in a children's museum, so.
Yeah, there you go.
Although the thing that I'm excited about, I don't know, Matt, did you guys get a chance to go to the Thinkery last year?
Yes, it's fantastic.
Okay, so there's that playground thing in the kind of courtyard off to the side. I'm excited that we're working on projection mapping that thing.
Ooh,
rock on.
Nice.
So we've got some really cool things that we've been working on.
The Thinkery was awesome.
Yeah, I am so excited to be kind of going in there, and we're gonna light it up. It's gonna be cool. There's a bunch of things that we're working on, and the Eventbrite is going up today. If you want to just search Signal ATX on Facebook, you can get to that page, and all of the information is there. But we trickle out all the announcements about artists and speakers and stuff. as we get closer to the event. So it's gonna kind of keep rolling out.
Yeah,
But it's
definitely
free.
send me that for show notes too. I'll put that up,
Mhm.
that link in there and on the events page for people to register.
Yeah. But I mean, the goal is to keep it like cheap as in free.
Yeah.
And so
That's the best way to have a party.
it's true. Well, I mean, the thing is that South by, almost everything during South by is free. So, you can't really charge for it anyways. Just because there's so many opportunities to do things that weekend. Man, like I've been in Austin for 11 years now, but first attended a South by, I think in '99. And it's just, I've always loved the atmosphere and the energy of, what the town feels like. It's sort of, I was telling somebody it's sort of an Almost Famous moment where Penny Lane is saying it's all happening. There's that sort of energy in downtown. It's just like, man, it's all happening.
It's changed a lot though. I mean, I used to go to the film South by back in the day, like, I don't know, 02, 03, and it had a certain vibe. It was busy, not as busy as it is now.
Yeah.
But where did you move? Was it North Carolina you used to live in? I can't remember where.
So I grew up in the wilds of St. Paul, Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota. Okay.
I spent probably like the first 25 years of my life there,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was working for a company that relocated me to Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I was there for 6 years, and then didn't really have to be there anymore. And we wanted to, my wife and I kind of had this conversation about like, we could be happy here, but we would always kind of wonder, what if? And we're trying to decide between Austin and Los Angeles. And, we had some friends here who we really loved, and we had, some things that we wanted to be here for throughout the year, and just decided Austin was the place we wanted to go.
I guess North Carolina, I thought, because it's so random. We have a mutual friend that I think lived in North Carolina. I think that's
She
why.
was living in Colorado at the time.
Oh, okay,
and
I gotcha.
I met her. And so later on, she moved to North Carolina and then met your friend and got married.
What a random connection, dude. Like
It's super random.
yeah. Like no, like before I even met you, like this is a years ago thing. That's so crazy. Small world.
The world's
My mother-in-law was at my aunt's wedding.
Oh, really?
probably my favorites.
Yeah.
So the two friends that we moved down here to be with, there was an internet news group that we were plugged into called Rec Music Christian growing up, and there would be some people that I would meet with at a music festival every year called Cornerstone, which is a pretty foundational experience for me. Like online community has always been, I mean, I was a nerdy kid growing up, and I think that's probably something that we can all relate to on some level. But online community, probably saved my life in a lot of ways because I didn't have a lot of friends. And there would be these times every year, like when I would go to this music festival in the summer where for a week I had friends.
Right. It's like when we all go to NAB and know everybody.
No, very much so. Very similar experience.
Yeah.
Like it's almost besides the point that there's a convention there. I get social interaction with the people that I see every day. And NAB specifically, when I was in the process of leaving my job a couple years ago, like I found out that all of that was happening literally just before I went to NAB, and to be able to be with my people while I was in the process of trying to sort out what the next thing was maybe one of the best things that could have ever happened.
Yeah.
But with this music festival, I had these friends that were here in Austin. They're the ones that we came to be near. But talking about random coincidences, so this woman had gone up to Dallas to see her dad. Her dad lived up there, and she was supposed to meet my friend Matt over at his dad's house. And she got over there, and she realized that my friend Matt's dad was her dad's like one of his best friends, and they golfed on a regular basis.
Man, isn't that weird how that happens?
But this dad hadn't ever met her, but so she decided to play a joke. She's, she like made herself super comfortable in this chair, and like was very casual about this whole thing, even though they had never met. And then, you know, was kind of weirding out my friend Matt, and I'm not doing a great job telling this story, but it eventually just explained that she was, you know, her dad's daughter.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God. It was just the shock of shocks. Like, you're so-and-so's daughter? But yeah, small world.
It's
man.
always-
Marry my son,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It was totally one of those crazy things. Well, yeah, because it was, you know, this the late '90s, so you know the idea that they were meeting anyone from online.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
that used to be a majorly sort of weird thing.
yeah.
And now we don't think anything.
Now that's the
of it.
only way people meet each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you say you were?
So-
Did you say it was a rap group that you were?
Internet Usenet news group called Rec Music Christian.
Oh,
I was
rec.
plugged
I thought
in-
you said rap. Okay.
Yeah, REC dot. You know,
Okay.
there's all of these different Usenet categories. So anyway, yeah, I was plugged into a, you know, like the alternative to the alternative, like, you know, not that I was a hipster, but I guess I was listening to music that no one else was listening to.
Mhm.
You know, even the church kids. And I didn't have any communities that I plugged into. And I was a freak to everyone, freak to high school, youth group kids. You know, I was always just weird.
Such
and
a
so
loner.
having those communities that I could plug into was really important.
Yeah. Yeah, and the importance of community in all areas, and now especially online. It's been great for communities like us and other communities to find people who are like you, because if you're just sitting in your, I mean, before the internet, you know, you're sitting in your house doing your thing, you're lucky to meet one other person who does what you do, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you can, even small communities of people can all find each other, you know, like furries. And you know, I mean, whatever you're into, right? I mean, but you can find these groups, especially now, man. There's Discord channels for everything. If you go on, like, you could find all sorts of weird stuff out there, especially on Reddit. These lists of these niche Discords, and you go in, and there's, I mean, people who are into, you know, crochet or whatever it is.
Underwater basket weaving.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find a Discord for it, and you'll find thousands of people who are into it, you know, and it's made the world smaller. I got a couple other things for the week wrap up, and we're gonna get into some of our topics here. Number one, I wanted to mention this because I was so impressed by it. McMillions on HBO. Oh my gosh, watch
The
it!
show?
Watch it!
I've not had a chance to see. I read
Oh.
the original Wired article that it came from. It's a fascinating story.
The story is so
Oh, the McDonald's Monopoly
insane.
promotion. Oh,
It is nuts. If you have HBO, get on there, watch this documentary. It is so well done. It is so well done, and they tell the story so well, and it is just so off the wall how this happened. And the people who interviewed in it, you know, there's this FBI dude, and he is the biggest character you've ever met in your life. He is just outstanding. His personality makes this documentary, and to hear his stories and to hear how it went down. This is episodic too. There's only been one so far, and I cannot wait
Oh,
for the next
crap.
one. It is so good.
Well, spoiler: the story gets crazier.
Yeah, I've heard
Like,
bits
it-
and pieces.
It's so. You know,
It's nuts.
I was a huge fan of the McDonald's Monopoly game back in the day, and I had dreams of, like, yeah, I'm gonna get Boardwalk and Park Place.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Like finding out, no, I wasn't.
Not
There
unless
was
you
no
know
way.
Uncle Jerry.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. You know, even the story behind that story though is really interesting. Like the way it got produced, because that journalist like specifically packages stories to magazines in order to shop them as films.
Mm.
So you know, the whole goal from the first place was to sell it as a film, but then they ended up packaging it as an article because you can't ever create something new without it being something else now. And so, you know, that whole, I mean, they've done that a number of times now. It's just really interesting.
Well, and I'm a McDonald's family too. I'm from Detroit. I'm a GM family and a McDonald's family. A lot of relatives
What
that
does that
work
mean?
for either or both. You know,
Oh.
so my dad, you know, in high school was working at McDonald's, became a manager and all of that way back in the day, right? That's the reason we moved, because they needed somebody. They needed a GM or something to move to Dallas in this new McDonald's they were building. And my life is centered around that. I grew up with that. I got all the Happy Meal toys. I loved McDonald's growing up.
Yep.
You know, my dad, you know, used to do all that. And he went back to college, moved on, went, you know, into computers and stuff. And that's how I got into computers. But I have that whole background. And anytime you hear anything about McDonald's, it's like, you know, it's reminiscent for me. And I watch all these clips and commercials in this documentary, and I remember every commercial, every clip, word for word. You know, we had McDonald's training videos on 3/4-inch reel sitting around growing up. You know,
How many of those Muppet Babies, the big Muppet Babies plush dolls, like the
I
Christmas
had all
ones,
of them.
did you have?
I have. They're still
my
somewhere.
mom worked for McDonald's at the time. You know,
Yeah.
and she would bring us home lots and lots of them.
But
Did you ever
it's,
get the Land Before Time rubber dinosaur?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was Pizza Hut. That was Pizza
Or
Hut.
was it?
oh yeah, that was
I had
Pizza
I
Hut.
had an
I know that
uncle
they'd had
who worked at
some
too.
Pizza Hut, and we had a ton of those little dolls.
But
Because I remember when I had gotten Dances with Wolves on VHS from McDonald's.
they had Mac, the little rubber doll that was Mac Tonight. You remember Mac Tonight on?
I do remember.
And then the
Max
little,
and I.
Do you know
Transformers.
Who Mac and I was?
Oh,
I have no
it
idea.
was.
Doug Jones, who
Okay.
later on goes to be Guillermo del Toro's monster actor. He's been
Oh,
in all
that's
sorts
funny.
of things. Yeah,
Huh.
yes, that's Doug Jones.
That's funny.
There were the Transformer ones that changed from like a Happy Meal into something.
Love those.
Yeah, the Muppet Babies cars that they had.
Yeah.
Man, I
The
had
Babies car.
all the things. I had every single one, you know, every single toy. But it's so reminiscent for me. But this documentary, again, just check it out. If you got HBO, it's
Speaking of
incredible.
documentaries episodic, I'm super late to the show on this one, but the People versus O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that was so
It's
good.
funny.
We just finished it this week, you know, and I'm going into it thinking, come on, we all know OJ's guilty. You know, how are they gonna convince me, the watcher, that he's not, that there may be some doubt? And sure enough, they did it. I was like,
That's
all right,
funny.
it was good. It was really good.
The only other thing I have, well, no, I got two things on here. One is yours, Matt. This is the VD UV. Was that it? VD.
FD
No, I'm
UV
sorry.
tools?
FD UV tools. I spelled this wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry. You just
So on the
sent me
Slack
this.
last night, someone showed this. I'm gonna say this name wrong. Flavio Diniz or Diniz, on Gumroad. We'll put the link in the show notes. But it's this new UV like toolkit for UVing inside of Cinema 4D, and very similar to Rhizome, you know. And it actually it works surprisingly well and very simple. So and it's only $30.
Mm-hmm.
It's like for
Yeah.
simple UVing, like this is the way it should be done in cinema. You know, you just select your edges and you hit unwrap UV. It's great. Anyway, so make sure to check it out. I'm super excited about it. We just purchased it. I know, Brian, you purchased it too.
Yeah, I
For
bought
$30,
it.
how can you not? You know.
Yeah. So there's this guy who he's kind of a douche. He would describe himself. His name's Ramit Sethi. He has this website. I think it's maybe changed to IWT, but he has a book. And the website was originally called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich." Like, admittedly kind of douchey, but he has this philosophy that's applied to a lot of the books that I read, where he's like, if you're thinking about buying a book, it's $20. Do not waste the energy of trying to decide whether or not you're going to buy it, because you're going to get $20 worth of value out of it. I mean, I feel like a $30 purchase like that, like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to waffle back and forth. Like, it's not the end of the world to spend $30. It's, you know, it's not like trying to come up with the money to, you know, originally buy cinema before they went to, you know, subscription or something. It's just like coming up with $3,000. Like, that's a much bigger discussion about what I'm going to do. I'm not going to waste the energy of wondering whether I'm going to spend $30 on this plugin, because I know I'm going to get $30 worth of value. Even if it's not perfect, I'm going to get $30 worth of value out of it.
Speaking of $30 worth of value, I was at Fry's Electronics the other day. Just walked in just to see how empty it is there. Which that's
It's
a whole
bizarre
it's bizarre. And I found a video on that the other day, by the way, on how bizarre it is and how they're covering up whatever is going on. I'm telling you, Fry's
what are
is
they
a front
doing?
for something now. I'm telling you, it's the only way they're staying in business. They're just empty shelves everywhere. Just go Google it, YouTube it, look what's going on. It's so weird. But I was actually talking to some people about it, and there was one nearby, and I was with my daughter, and she's like, "Let's just go inside." And so we walk around, and we're looking in there, and it's empty. There's nothing to buy except we go to the magazine section. And it's funny because the only thing we did was buy some magazines. She got like a Fortnite magazine and whatnot, and I found a 3D magazine, and it's like a yearly 3D magazine that comes out, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool, coffee table thing to have or whatever. I'm sure this is like, I don't know, $8 or whatever. I get to the line, we buy our magazines, and like my total is like $50-something, and I'm like, wait a minute, we're only buying a couple magazines. The magazine was $30.
What?
$30. Because you
That's crazy.
you just can't
put it back?
justify it. I said no, I'm not buying that. You just can't justify that. Like it would be cool to have a little 3D magazine on the coffee table here, but $30.
No, it's not worth $30.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'll go buy that
I'm not
UV
saying
mapping
it's
tool.
universal.
Yeah. Also, my dad was in the chat. He said employees used to steal the cases of Monopoly tickets and have a ticket opening party at their houses. And what's funny is if you watch this documentary, you'll find out that it wouldn't have mattered anyway. They still wouldn't have gotten Boardwalk or anything else. So
That's funny.
yeah,
Do you remember the Dick Tracy McDonald's games?
kind
where
of.
It was a scratch off, right? But you had to scratch the right one off in order to win it. Like every one of them will win, but if you scratched the wrong one
Oh.
off, you lose. So you had to scratch the right one off in order to win.
So stressful.
So you had
That
like
is
a
very stressful.
25% chance of actually winning, you know?
I just
That one.
remember my poor mom being subject. It came out around Mother's Day or something, and it was either Mother's Day or her birthday, but I remember buying her some awful bright yellow Dick Tracy hat as a Mother's Day present, and then she was expected to wear it because, oh my God, I feel so bad looking back on that stuff. The 90s were not a good era for fashion.
I remember
That's
thinking
funny.
that it was really cool that Dick Tracy could talk through his watch, and now we have that capability, and I never use it.
Yeah, okay, I just looked it up. Yeah, so you had to rub off one box at a time, and if you got game over on any of them, you lost.
Oh man,
Right?
is there any way you could like see through it in order to?
I don't know.
Game
I have
the
no
system?
idea. That's cool though. But if you, yeah, I don't know.
So last thing I have on the agenda though for the week wrap up here is MotionWorks is closing down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with his tutorials, he's still going to be doing tutorials on a different YouTube channel. I think you can still buy everything, like making look great and all that is going to be available for sale. But there's a post, I'll put it in the show notes. I wanted to put that in here just because
Man, John has become such a great modeler, though.
yeah,
And
he has. He
His
has.
Twitter
Yeah.
feed, watching him build stuff out, I
Yeah.
get so jealous.
Yeah,
I know, right?
so good.
Wow.
And we want to wish him the best on that. And but also, I don't really have any other links. Like there won't really be a link section today, so because that's all I had. But so I wanted to put that in there. So let's get to some topics because we got a lot of topics to talk about today. Number one, Brian, what you have on the list here is switching careers, but I guess give us a little bit of background on you and your, your school or not school or whatever, and what you do day to day.
Let's see. Where to begin? Well, in terms of school, I guess it's sort of Schrodinger's box in a way, because I have an associate in broadcast communications. So when I graduated high school, like I didn't want to go to college, and ended up going and getting into it's a trade school that's not even open anymore called Brown Institute.
Hopefully you're not still paying the student loans on that.
No, my parents had helped out a little bit. and then I did end up paying it off. I forget exactly how much it was, but I got an associate in broadcast communications, and then ended up not going into radio because I was already working at a public access station in Minnesota, and I would have been making the same as I would have been if I had moved to a tiny small town. And so just like, okay, well, I'll just stay at the TV station. And one of the beautiful things about working at that public access station, that's kind of where I'd gotten into production in the first place, was making little films of my own. And it's the early 90s. There's no nonlinear editing. The only way to edit was to either plug two VCRs together, or public access was amazing because you could get access to suites. And so that I got into public access.
You had an edit controller and an MX12 or an MX50.
And they had access to stuff that you could use as long as you aired it on the public access station. The downside to that is that it ended up pulling me into TV production for a long time and away from film. But I started working there when I got out of high school as a receptionist, and because they weren't paying you anything, or little, they let you do kind of not quite whatever you wanted. But I started to get interested in motion design a little bit.
They make you water the ferns for the sets?
You didn't need to water. They were plastic.
Oh, they were fake. Okay.
But yeah, so I started experimenting with After Effects back then. Man, I wanted to say I had a 233 megahertz Power Mac. It was the first G3 or something. The very first project I did, there was no video out, and so we set the sync rate of the camera to the sync rate of the monitor and turned the lights off and shot the screen, and that was how we got stuff out of After Effects.
Oh my goodness.
I found that project, it was so bad. Oh my God. And timing wise, it was also bad. But I'd been using the video toaster. You were mentioning your first 3D experience was Lightwave. That was mine too, but there was no one around to help, and there were no online videos. So I got scared off of 3D for 15 years.
Yeah.
It's like, God, if it's like that, I can never do it. But yeah, so I'd gone, gotten my associates, and then started working as at this public access station, and starting to do some more design work, and realized that if I ever wanted to go anywhere, I was going to have to go back to school. And so I did end up going back to a liberal arts school in Minneapolis called Augsburg. And I was working on a double major in marketing and graphic design with a minor in religion in the honors department, and my credits were all over the place. So I ended up dropping out when the company I was working for moved to Colorado. So anyways, yeah, so I've had some school, and, but it's not like I'm a professionally trained motion designer. I didn't get my bachelor's in motion design or anything like that.
Right.
But so I've always looked up to someone like Thomas Jefferson, who studied all kinds of things, or Ben Franklin. There's modern versions of that too, but just the idea that you could be a gentleman scholar and have learned all sorts of things in so many different domains. And so, I don't know, there's this sort of punk rock thing that's always kind of wanted to. I had a friend in Colorado who is an accountant, and I always used to sort of compare how I was doing against him, salary wise. Just like, okay, well, I'm doing okay. I'm winning at this not having a degree thing. But yeah, so my career's hopped back and forth between, going from public access. I ended up becoming a graphic designer at a church, worked for some nonprofits. I did medical editing for a while for a production company in town. Had a couple of, and there was one time, I went through some pretty major depression when I was in high school and college for a number of reasons. And I was working for a production company in Minneapolis at the time. I think some people may have heard me talk about the worst project that I ever worked on, which was called "Woman to Woman: A Guide in Helping Your Man Pick Impotence Treatments." It was it was really
Rock on.
it was a fake talk show with some elderly Jewish women in the era pre-Viagra
Ooh.
talking about impotence treatments.
Ooh.
With a
Where
solid
was it like the pumps and stuff like that?
it was the pumps, but
Ooh.
beyond the pumps, it was surgery video of the pumps.
Oh,
And so
I've
it
done
was
some
just a
surgery videos
solid
of
week.
some genitalia surgery videos.
Oh,
They
man.
are not fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a solid week of elderly gentleman penile surgery.
Oh.
And I burned
Mm.
out on that project. I was
Pretty quick,
working
I'm
like
sure. Pretty
3
quick
different
deep burn out.
freelance jobs
Man.
and going to school full time, and kind of flamed out spectacular. That was the first of my career flame outs. It was just like, I'm going to work at Old Navy and go to school and just do that, and I'm going to be happy. And found out that it was completely miserable working at Old Navy.
Yeah.
You know, but and it wasn't even the working at Old Navy. Like I liked that, but like doing something like organizing all of the T-shirts and then seeing the Sisyphean issue of getting them all organized and then coming back later that day and seeing that they're all messed up again. Just like,
Like
okay,
having
I
freaking
gotta
children.
push it up the hill again.
Yeah.
It is that is the definition of having children.
Yeah,
Basically.
no,
Right.
That's
When
so I
when Marge goes, cleans the kitchen, and then she tells him not to mess it up, and then the door swings open and it's all trashed again right away.
I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and that's kind of
Yeah, you know,
that's been like
you're right there in my world too.
I just I hired a cleaner again last week who comes for the first time tomorrow, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I would be too.
You know, we can get into it, later on in the podcast, but my wife and I both have ADHD that we've only discovered in the last couple of years, and part of that, makes it really hard to keep the house organized.
Yeah.
And then combined with 2 young kids, it's just the amount of stress from knowing that something needs to be done and not necessarily being able to muster the energy to get it clean. And then just sort of having the frustration of that mount has been really, really stressful. My
it's
wife
weird.
is
You'll spend days and days and days worrying about cleaning up something, and then you spend an hour actually cleaning it, and it's gone. And then you're like, oh, why did I worry about it? But it's like, especially trying to find time, as like all my Christmas stuff right now is all piled up waiting to go up into the attic. And it's been like that for 2 months. Like I literally took Christmas down the day after Christmas, It's like trying to find that time it's hard.
Yeah, there's a YouTube channel that as I was diagnosed this summer, discovered called How to ADHD. And they have
ADHD.
How to ADHD.
Okay.
It's an amusing channel. Like, if you're curious about anything, it's a good place to sort of learn about this thing. But they have a video called "The Chasm of Awful," and it's talking about ways to sort of build the bridge to start to do the thing. Whatever the thing is. Because that was really what caused me to sort out a diagnosis this year. Is I'd had a week where you were asking about what I do now, and I'm a freelance designer. I work out of my house. It's my office here, upstairs bedroom that we've turned into an office, and I didn't have any client work that week, and was trying to focus on a side project thing. And could not focus. Some of it was that the kids are home for the summer. They make noise. But the dog next door, like any little thing was taking me out. And being able to get back into the thing, it was, like a 10, 15-minute process.
Right.
And so when you're getting pulled out of it 5 or 6 times an hour, you can't focus. Like it was really bad, and I'd been complaining to my wife for like the 3rd day in a row, and she's like, God damn it. Like, you have something. You've been complaining about this for years. You probably have ADHD and you won't admit it. And was like, no, I don't. And started to go do some research. And in my head, ADHD was that spazzed out kid.
Right.
Because you see the hyperactive side of that. And so that was one of the reasons that I was like, no, I don't. Like, and it turned out that I was much more on the inattentive side of that.
And then you
and
get frustrated too. You get frustrated with,
Yeah.
you know that it's the distraction. You know the dog barking, the phone dinging, all the things pull you out of it.
Ideologically, I knew I had to be on task. I knew I had stuff to get done. I'd had systems in place that sometimes helped me to get back on task,
Right.
but like I couldn't do it. Like, in the frustration there of like knowing that you need to do the thing, but then not being able to focus on it.
Yeah.
You know, I was very right to be frustrated. So anyways, my wife had kind of challenged me on that, and I didn't think that I did. And went to the doctor and got they gave me an assessment and prescribed some medication, and
What's the assessment like? How do they find that out?
So my wife is really frustrated that I had an easier time of this. And when I went to my doctor at first, like, I was actually a little frustrated that it was as easy as it was, because it's just like, I want you to be thorough. Like, I want you to know for sure.
Right.
But a lot of doctors, so it was an assessment of a number of, like, it was a self-assessment of, like, kind of sort of like a Myers-Briggs, if you've ever taken it. Personality, if you've ever taken a personality study, where they then take it, like, there's a whole bunch of questions that get answered in sort of similar ways, and you're like, I was wrestling a lot of the time filling out the survey. I was like, well, I don't know. I was just like, I don't know that I would answer this. Just like, maybe it's this way. Just like, well, and then
I don't know. I don't know. That would worry me. It feels like it wouldn't give a really correct assessment. I don't know.
Well, but there's also the doctor sort of looking at you, talking through some of those things at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, basically at the end of the day, a lot of the times they'll test to see what the medication does to you too.
Right. Yeah.
And
see,
so
that I had a bout of depression in my early 20s. And so I went to the doctor and I was like, what can you prescribe me? And he said, well, I'll do this. And I said, well, what about this? And he's like, all right, let's try that. And it didn't, I don't know, that doctors have always rubbed me the wrong way,
Yeah.
But
well,
that's me personally.
And the challenge, particularly when it comes to psychology, is like, a psychologist can't prescribe medication. And so if you go to a psychologist, like, they're going to be working on counseling and therapy that way, which has its place and can be very useful.
Totally agree.
A psychiatrist can prescribe medication and oftentimes doesn't have all of the education that a psychologist does. And so they often, because they can prescribe medication, lean on a pharmacological approach to addressing whatever the issue is, for better or worse. And a general practitioner is sort of neither one of those things, but can prescribe. And, so I'd gone to a GP, and still working on some coaching and some therapy for the other side of it. Because, like, one of the things about ADHD is that, Adderall and other stimulants, like, don't fix it. They just work with the symptoms. And
Right.
so, but one of the things that I discovered when I, sort of took the first dose was like, oh, this is what it means to be normal. I guess I haven't experienced this. This is weird.
It's intriguing to me how someone with ADHD reacts to Adderall. See, because I've taken Adderall before. Sorry, Mom. I've taken Adderall before with some friends, and it was like speed, where you just I had a ton of energy, and like I would be in these really intense conversations with people, you know, for really long time. And then like I remember one time I drove to
You broke up.
yeah, I know. It's all right. I remember one time I drove from Austin to Dallas, you know, and I popped an Adderall before the drive, and like that drive lasted no time at all, you know.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
That's
I'm
definitely
just
not been my experience with
okay.
it.
Well,
Like, it was just-
that's so interesting to hear. It's so interesting to hear.
Well, because if you
like, I
don't
just
need
sort of
it,
have a normal day.
You what?
I just sort of have a normal day. Like it's,
Yeah.
I don't know.
if you
Like,
if you
I
don't
can
need
kinda
it,
sit
it's
down
gonna
and-
do like it's gonna be too much, you know.
Yeah.
But if you need it,
So I don't know. It was interesting, and I'm not. This is not me necessarily advocating drugs,
Right.
But like for me, it was just like it was shocking. It was like a come to Jesus moment of like, oh my God, like wow, I didn't realize just how far off things had been, and then discovering, talking about career changes, just how much of my life had been affected in a way that I didn't understand.
Mhm.
You know, because as I'm doing some research, specifically the first thing that made me realize that there was something off. There was this book called Driven to Distraction, and there's a case study at the beginning of it talking about this guy who had a proposal that he needed to write for work, and he had been putting it off and putting it off, and he knew in his head what he wanted to say, but he couldn't get it down on paper. And it's the night before he needs to deliver this thing, and he still can't do it. And then he gets to like 2 or 3 in the morning, and he finally sort of tires his brain out enough that it starts to come out, and it flows out of him in the next 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up finishing with some time to like take a nap, but then he ends up sleeping through when he needed to get up, and he blows it. Like that had never really been my experience, but like that part of it had never been my experience, but I was well too familiar with the idea of using adrenaline to get projects done, which had become a lot of, when I would get into long involved projects at Rooster Teeth, I would use adrenaline to get things done, whether that was working 7 days in a row and living at the office. I think the longest I ever lived at the office was 12 days.
Your wife must have hated you.
You know what? The only reason that my career has worked is because of my wife.
Yeah.
I'm
with you on that.
I love my wife dearly. And that's the reason that I've been able to stay in production. When I was working on Rooster Teeth did a film a few years ago called Laser Team that was one of the initial releases on YouTube Red. And I forget the exact budget of the film, but they were trying to make a film that was much bigger than the budget they had. And I'd gotten embedded. I was doing all the FUI on the film, and they ended up embedding me over with the house that was doing the majority of the VFX work. And so I had a really awkward day where I packed up my office and moved to another company and had to be like, I'm not quitting. I swear, I will be back. But, the 2 days in, they made the announcement that everyone was moving to a 7-day week.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, can they do that legally?
I don't know. They did. So
I've heard some horror stories.
7-day
Rooster
week.
Teeth,
well,
you know.
In Rooster Teeth's defense, I'm not defending Rooster Teeth, but that's a fairly universal thing across a whole host of production companies and VFX houses in animation studios.
Okay, but 7 days a
What
week,
happened?
are they expecting everybody to work 7 days a week, or are they open 7 days
Yeah.
a week?
Yeah, no, in this case, it was crunch on a project. And
So
yeah,
what happens if someone just refuses and says, no, I can only do 5 days a week? They just let you
Find
go?
another job?
I mean, there was a contractor who bitched about it at this VFX house, and he was gone.
It seems to me that
sucks.
why would you hurt yourself by getting rid of one person when you need the help? You know, I don't know.
Because
If anything, to me, it seems like they should
team
make it more
dynamic.
enticing for people who will work 7 days a week. You know, were they paying overtime to those people? Or were they all
I forget
salaried
the
positions, so
exact.
they
Well,
just expected them to
this
work?
guy who was bitching,
Mm-hmm.
he was hourly. So it was just
Mm.
like, dude, shut up. Everyone else is on salary.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, you know, you need to shut your mouth because you're getting paid for all these hours.
Right.
So, like, seriously, of all of the people who should not be complaining, you're definitely in one. You know, anyways,
Yeah.
you know, there's definitely probably some Stockholm syndrome in here where like you're in the middle of the situation and you know, you start to feel. So one of the things that I've always had that has been both a good and a bad thing for me in my career is that I become very personally invested in whatever I'm actively doing.
Right.
And so in the 7 years that I spent at Rooster Teeth, you know, a lot of my identity became wrapped up in the fact that I worked at Rooster Teeth,
Mm-hmm.
for better or worse. I had a really interesting conversation with a friend last year who happened to be working in town on my birthday, and so we had gone out for some ice cream and we're chatting and catching up. And I drove him over to where I used to work and pointed out. And he's like, you know, I never really knew or cared what Rooster Teeth was. You know that, right? I was just like, no, I guess not. I mean, you know, I always felt in a lot of ways like, you know, I didn't really start doing any speaking or anything else until I got to Rooster Teeth, and it's because I felt like I had a mantle to be able to speak from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was working for all these small production companies or nonprofits or churches. It was like, who the fuck wants to hear from me? Like, I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. That's not necessarily true. But you know, there's this identity that you get in your head of like, I'm this tiny, insignificant little speck of dust.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to Rooster Teeth, and like suddenly I felt like, okay, well, maybe I can speak up because you know, there's certainly people who have seen what they've done. And so, you know, one of the interesting things when I left was realizing that, you know, I that was wrong, and that you know I could speak up regardless. You know, and the interesting thing was like everything that I had gotten, you know, I took with me. In terms of like, you know, I could say that I was an alumni and I left on good terms. But you know, like all of the things that I built while I was there, I could still take credit for. So I don't know, but like it was interesting. And so like when you're in a film production situation like that, you know, because you have a certain amount of investment in, you know, well, I'm part of this team. Like I need to make sure that this thing gets done. Like I've been put in charge of making sure that I can deliver this stuff to us, and I have a personal expectation of I want it to be this quality.
Right.
Um, you know, you end up investing more into that for better or worse.
And you said it was kind of like the last minute adrenaline thing. That's how you would get it done, which we call the nose man method. He actually preaches that. You know, he's like, I'll just do it at the last minute. But would you feel?
I don't advocate for it, but I definitely have had those times. Well, I mean, a lot of those times where I call it not getting voted off the island. You know, I would have that. Oh, good, I delivered. I don't get voted off the island this week. And particularly on that film, and then on the follow-up, you know, there weren't sufficient structures in place to be able to kind of adequately deliver that project. There weren't great milestones set up. You know, there wasn't. I was working very alone, and so there's not even necessarily really any supervisor. It's just like you have to deliver these things. There's an abstract amount of time, which turns out is like the worst way for someone with ADHD to work on a giant project. But you know, I would have these things where I would be at my desk struggling to sort out what was going on with this FUI thing, like trying to wrap my head around it, not being able to focus, getting frustrated, and then the night or two before, like it would be super late, and finally I would be able to sit down and bust it out. And it wasn't that I was slacking. Like I had exerted an immense amount of energy trying to focus. If you pulled up the activity monitor of the CPU of my brain, you would see it spinning all sorts of cycles on a broken process.
Did you feel like when you were working on, well, I mean, that kind of applies to working there, but even on your own personal things, before you were diagnosed, did you have trouble even working on things that you were like totally into?
Yes and no. A lot of people, there's a very common thing in ADHD where if there's something that you're interested in, you don't have any issue focusing at all. Because um, a lot of the thing is all about the way dopamine reacts in your brain,
Right.
for better or worse, which is why stimulants end up having an opposite effect, because it ends up helping the receptors work with the dopamine in your brain. That's a super oversimplification of the brain stuff going on, but that's sort of what's going on. Is someone who doesn't have ADHD has an adequate amount of dopamine between those receptors already. And so, when you're doing that, it acts like speed because, now you're super saturating those chemicals on those receptors.
Yeah, it's like super easy for me when I'm into something that's like my own thing, and I get into designing something or doing something in cinema, and I got my music and my coffee and my everything's set, and I'm into it. I might not get up for 6 hours. Like,
Yeah.
I might not even go to the bathroom. But then, if God forbid I have to work on a project that's only going to take me an hour for a client, it takes me all day to
Yeah.
get to it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I had so many of those. There's another film that I was working on. It's called The Next Kill.
I worked
it's
on The
been
Next
on the
Kill.
festival circuit. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know Mike McCutcheon?
I do.
Yeah,
That's
so
funny.
I was a VFX supervisor on that. And I feel like I kind of dropped the ball. We got the project done, but it was definitely one of those things where, um, there wasn't a lot of budget. I mean, it was a labor of love for him. So I had volunteered to work on it. And being able to, there's a bunch of set extension stuff that I was modeling and building out for that. And it's sort of pre-render cloud. Like I don't have a render network, and
Yeah, this is a while back.
Cloud doesn't exist, and I'm freaking out about rendering all of these scenes. I only literally just switched to Octane in the last month. I finally buckled down and bought it because I didn't have a machine that could run it for a long time. I built a Hackintosh last year that has a 1080 Ti, but I hadn't gotten around to buying Octane, and I bought it, and it's been really amazing. Like, oh my God, like,
That's what all the fuss is about.
3D. Well, yeah, I mean, whatever GPU engine you're working in, it was just. But so working on this project, like getting the momentum to work on it, because I would just see the pain of rendering out all these scenes. It was very hard to get motivated. And I knew that it wasn't hard. I knew I could buckle down and just do it. But the knowledge of doing that and the actuality of doing that were two entirely different things. And so, yeah, I mean, it was interesting. So after the diagnosis, I actually kind of had to, I've never been an alcoholic, but in 12 steps, one of the things that's a part of the 12-step process is asking forgiveness. And so I actually felt like I needed to go ask for forgiveness for some things where I suddenly saw that there was this thing that was there. Because I would never intentionally drop the ball on something. That's not how I'm wired, but there was this thing that was there. And so, specifically on The Next Kill, I had to go to a friend who's the producer on that film and go, hey, I just need you to know, I discovered this thing this summer, and I really wish that I had known 20 years ago that this was there because I would have done something about it. But I just need to apologize because I definitely ended up not delivering that project the way that I wanted to. And I caused you guys more stress because I had this thing that I was dealing with. And, the production of that was also going through while I was working on Laser Team. And so there's, it's not like it existed in a vacuum. Like there was career and other life going on in between this film production. But being able to focus on that was so hard.
Yeah.
Particularly not knowing that this thing was there. Because then you end up starting to kind of belittle yourself in your own head. Like, why the fuck can't I do these things? Like, I know that I can do it. Like, am I just stupid or something for not being able to focus? So yeah, I mean, it was almost sort of liberating in a way to discover that this thing was there.
Right. And man, the next kill, that was indeed that was going on for a while, like 5 or 6 years. I think the only thing that I did was like an alpha channeled body falling from somewhere to superimpose over something. That's okay. It was a long time ago, but I think it just premiered, right?
50 or 75 shots in it.
Oh, wow.
The movie. Like I worked on a lot of that movie.
That was a lot of people volunteering, or working for low budget because it was like a labor of love film. It was something.
It's a really fun movie.
Yeah.
If you get a chance to see it on the circuit or whenever it finally comes out on digital, like he did a great job. It's definitely a unique film. It's probably the only feature film that was totally processed in Tunit, and a couple of other things. I helped work on that process of how he was going to turn those things into 2D. And frankly, I would probably come up with some alternate versions of that now. But I helped work on the workflow of how he was going to process all of those things, and doing some digging and investigating into alternate processes. But yeah, so no, if you get a chance to see the film, it's an interesting film, but it's definitely unique. It's really fun.
Yeah. Gosh, I bet we know in Austin. I bet we know quite a few people of the same people. Then, I mean this. It always seems like, do you know J.J. Weber? Wasn't he involved somehow in that too? I know him from other areas.
He's the producer. He's the one who I went and apologized to.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't even know that JJ was working on that until like later on, and I met him through a different friend.
This is not interest to all of the podcast listening audience, but JJ is like an integral part of my career. I end up getting to Rooster Teeth in part because of that community of people that were involved. So we made the decision to move to Austin, and I didn't move to Austin to work at Rooster Teeth. I moved to Austin because of people like Robert Rodriguez. I had gotten to know Harry Knowles at Ain't It Cool News, and I had my other like non-film friends who were here, and so it was all social reasons that we wanted to be here. Like, I wanted to be around to be able to do South by if I wanted to without having to travel to Austin to go to South by, or Fantastic Fest, which is a genre festival. And so, we made the decision to move to town. And I had seen Emily Hagen's documentary, Zombie Girl. Emily is a great female film director now in her mid-20s, but she made a feature-length zombie film when she was 16. And so there's this documentary called Zombie Girl, and a couple years later, before she graduated, she made it when she was 13. Sorry, even more impressive.
Jeez, yeah.
So you should go watch this doc. It's interesting. You can find it online.
It sounds really familiar, really familiar. Like I read something about it or something.
So she made a second feature, and it didn't do so well, and she was making a third feature, and a guy who was working for me at the time at a startup that I was working on was going to be producing my Psyche Teen Romance, her third feature. And I made the decision that, I moved to Austin to do film. And one of the things that I'm always an advocate for, and I found that it really holds true, is you do the things that the people around you do. And so if you really want to be doing something, go get plugged into a community where that's happening, and So if you're trying to get fit, hanging out with a bunch of people who sit around watching movies is probably not going to help you get fit.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're hanging out with a bunch of CrossFitters, pro or con, like you can't help but start to feel
Little
that you're dragged
osmosis.
towards that.
That is absolutely true. The one time I was in the best shape of my life, I worked at a company where everyone was working out and talking about how often they worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not even intentionally making a decision to do it. You just end up sort of floating in that atmosphere and feeling yourself pulled that way.
Yeah.
And so Paul was going to be working on this movie, and we suddenly had people around us who were making movies. I was like, okay, it's time. We'd been in Colorado and we'd been wanting to make movies, and all of the people that we were around were people who were wanting to make movies and not actually doing anything. And so moving to Austin put us in a position where we were around people who were doing things.
Yeah.
And oh my God, like, I felt a lot like my 20s were kind of a waste in a way. Not that it was bad. And in hindsight, all of the things that I did throughout my 20s were things that ended up impacting my 30s. And, helped me grow into the person that I became in my 30s. But like, I didn't work on my first feature film until I was in my 30s after I moved to Austin. But, Emily gets the film into South by, and I end up doing like a lot of the promotion on that. There were supposed to be like 3 VFX shots, and it ended up ballooning into like 120.
Oh God. Just a little bit more.
It's one of those things. But we got it into South by, and it premiered during South by, and it got bought and it got released. And I was really proud of that. And that ended up leading to another person who wanted me to work on their short, who was friends with the people at Rooster Teeth. And I didn't want a job, but I knew they were doing more on Red versus Blue, and thought, oh hey, it might be fun to go do VFX on that. And asked for an introduction and sent them a reel of titles. And unbeknownst to me, they had made a decision they wanted to hire a title designer. The silly thing is that when I first moved to town, I made a decision to volunteer at South by Southwest as a way to kind of plug into the community. And, while I was volunteering on the YouTube team and, editing kind of clips of sessions inside of the conference. And, you're not getting paid. And so one day I was like, hey, can I make some little logos or something that we can use on the videos? And they're like, yeah, we're not paying you. Do whatever you want. and so I put those on my reel, and they thought it was, oh my God, he's worked at South by Southwest. And so, they see this stuff on the reel and they're like, oh my God. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Like, we want someone working with us that works with South by Southwest. Like, not knowing that this is just volunteer stuff, and they let me do it because they didn't care what I was working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it all plays in together. You never know what the thing is 3 steps down the line that's going to be influenced by the thing that you're doing now. And so working on Emily's movie, I didn't know that Emily's movie was going to lead to me working at Rooster Teeth. But yeah, so I don't know exactly where I was going with that. But so JJ was a producer on my second romance as well. But it's really interesting because if you go back and watch Zombie Girl, you see all of these people that are part of my community now, and it's so weird seeing a documentary with people that in it. And seeing sort of the divide between film world and real world, and it's kind of a thin membrane between the two sometimes. But yeah, that was the start of plugging into that community, so that's where JJ Weber comes in. But it plugs into a whole lot of what my life became in the 30s as I was working at Rooster Teeth.
Now, tell me a little bit more. I think a lot of people who listen to the show are in motion graphics, similar industries or whatever. And a lot of people, including in our survey, have said they want to hear about these offshoots and these different things that are slightly related, in some way, shape, or form. Kind of like, like what a lot of people do who come to Signal, very similar but not exactly the same industry, you know. And so I think a lot of people want to hear more about things like AR, you know, what you're doing right now. And
Yeah.
so I was hoping you could tell everybody a little bit more about that, about what you're doing with AR and how you even went about kind of getting into it. Also, I'm going to pee, so give me like 30 seconds. So you guys go ahead and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Well, that's a first.
So when I left Rooster Teeth, you know, in Signal, even in a way, I was telling Dave about this the other day. I have this kind of theory that I've been working on called, well, not a theory, but I've been using it to sort of describe some of what I've been doing lately, called the Stone Soup model. Do you know the story of Stone Soup?
I do, yeah.
Like, this guy comes to a town and
Yeah.
you know, he's asking for dinner and all he has is a stone, but he says, you know, I will show you how the stone turns into soup. And everyone comes and you know, as he starts to cook the soup, he says, hey, I need some onion. And someone brings some onion, and everybody ends up bringing something as he's asking for people to add, you know, I need this thing for the stone soup. And unbeknownst to them, they've ended up creating something out of stuff they've already had that ended up helping everyone. And so, you know, when I left Rooster Teeth, you know, it was kind of, you know, it was a pretty traumatic thing. I had made a proposal at one point to reorganize a design department. There had been some stuff that had happened early on in my career where the on-screen design department was separated from the merchandise department. Because when I first got to Rooster Teeth, you know, I'm number 14, 13 or 14. I always forget which one it is, but you know, the company's really small, and so, you know, one of the things that's part of a small company is wearing a lot of hats. And so, you know, at one point I was in charge of merchandise development, I was in charge of visual effects, I was in charge of our title design, branding. Like, you know, you're wearing, basically I built the design department at Rooster Teeth. You know, I was wearing all of these sort of design hats because they had made a decision that they wanted to start hiring specialists. Everyone before then had kind of been a generalist. And so I came in as a design specialist and basically started to help the company grow up by, you know, getting professional branding. And so, you know, the departments had gotten divided at one point when I had a designer that really butted heads, and through a number of reasons, the departments ended up getting divided. And so a few years later down the line, as the company grew, you know, a significant portion of revenue ends up coming through T-shirts.
Right.
You know, one of the first business models for Rooster Teeth was Strong Bad, and the work that they were doing. They were making a lot of, yeah, they were making a lot of their money off of T-shirts, and so Rooster Teeth, you know, sort of looked at that as a way to, like, okay. No, they weren't involved with Strong Bad.
Okay. I was about to say, I didn't know that. Yeah. I got you.
But, you know, so, you know, trying to figure out how to run an internet business, you know, Rooster Teeth is one of the first companies that was ever a profitable, viable online video company. You know, there weren't a lot of models to sort of look at, you know, before then. You know, there was no video distribution at all when Rooster Teeth first started.
Right.
And so they looked at torrenting. You know, people would trade things on floppies. And, you know, there's a funny story. Before they started working on it full time, they had released one of the episodes and they had it on one of the computers at the technical support company that the founders were working at. And one day the IT guy came in and it's just like, why is 95% of the internet traffic for the company coming from this room?
Oh gosh.
Oh my gosh. Spike. One of the first months of the company's existence, they had a $25,000 internet bill for video distribution. Man. And so they put up they decided to start offering sponsorship. Hey, do you want to become a sponsor? I forget the phrasing that they used, but they turned a computer on and they put a post up on the website, and they came back from lunch and they thought the computer was broken because it was just dinging over and over and over and over again. And they couldn't figure out what was going on. And they realized that they had set up a cha-ching sound. And they were being flooded with people that were signing up to be sponsors. And so that's how they paid kind of the first bill. But yeah, so there wasn't a model, and so T-shirts became one of the primary methods for the company to make money. And so you have these two departments divide, and it got to a point where branding decisions were coming down from the merchandise department. And when the primary product of the company is content, that's kind of contrary to the way, like, it's weird because the money is coming from merchandise. And so in theory, it needs to have input, it needs to be a part of the process, but it needs to be a higher part of the funnel where those decisions are coming in. And so I made a proposal that the department be reorged and moved under marketing, because I felt like marketing was part of the circulatory system of the company, and it would be at a higher part and make more sense. And so they accepted that proposal, but unbeknownst to me, the VP of marketing wasn't approached and asked if he wanted this to happen, and he knew that I had made the proposal. And so with some of these challenges that I experienced with my ADHD, because admittedly, there were definitely things that went off because of some of the symptoms that I didn't understand were a part of this thing that I didn't know I had. And so I went into annual review, and one of the first things I heard was, "You have to know that we're trying to save your job." I was like, oh, okay. I promise this gets to augmented reality. We're getting very close to it. So, I, knew, like, okay, this can't be fixed. Basically I was given, they took care of me to be able to leave and figure out what the next thing was. I'd helped build the company. And so they took very good care of me to be able to step away. And I will always be thankful for that. But it put me in a real mess, talking about how I found my identity in this thing, to then suddenly have that identity taken away from you and have to figure out what the thing was again. And so as I'm starting to kind of rebuild and figure out who I am now, I started looking at AR in part because, I loved merchandise stuff. I loved designing T-shirts when I was working on designing T-shirts. I was stressed out because I was also doing branding and visual effects and DVD authoring and all of the things.
Yeah.
And to be able to keep your design hat on while you're holding your DVD authoring hat at the same time is very, very hard. And so, one of the things that I knew that I wanted to do in this next stage is I want to design some stuff, and I want to own some stuff that is mine. And I wasn't ever going to be able to own anything while I was at Rooster Teeth. If I built anything, justifiably, anytime you're inside of a company, the things that you design while you're there are theirs. And so, I knew, and, I definitely had my wife's support before I decided to leave, but I knew that, okay, I'm going to go freelance and I'm going to figure out what the next thing is. And I didn't leave to start building an AR project, but, one of the first things I did after I left, I don't have any gigs yet. And so I'm sitting at my computer and kind of designing, and definitely going through a thing where, I'm not bipolar, but having the crisis of leaving a job, I was on a roller coaster between manic and depressive, multiple times a day. And particularly going to Vegas immediately after, because this meeting happens and then I fly out to NAB 2 days later. And I've always done some of my best thinking on planes. And as I was flying out to NAB, I was sort of on the manic side, and I had a feeling good about this transition. Because you're walking off a cliff. I have a mortgage, I have a marriage, I have 2 kids, and I'm making a decision to give away, to walk away from about 85 grand a year in salary. Which is like, it's a pretty scary thing to walk away
Right.
from, without knowing what the next thing is. And so, I'm flying out to NAB, and I started thinking about Roger Corman. I don't know if you guys know who Roger Corman is. He was a film producer in the 60s, he's still alive, but he was known for a lot of schlock cinema. Things like Death Race 2000, the original Little Shop of Horrors film, produces a lot of B movies. But the thing about it is that he is the gateway for a huge number of people who come into the film industry. James Cameron gets his first job through Roger Corman. Jack Nicholson gets his first job through Roger Corman. Ron Howard ends up getting his first directing job through Roger Corman. There's dozens of people who end up like getting their career started through these movies from Corman's production company. And so I started thinking about him, and thinking about how that could potentially apply to me. Just like, okay, I know I want to build something that allows me to potentially, be a springboard for people who I think should be doing more than they're doing. And so that, that became a part of it. It was like, I don't know exactly how that fits in. I know I want to build a content company, but I don't want to build something that's like Rooster Teeth. I'm not even necessarily into the stuff that I was working on when I was at Rooster Teeth.
Yeah.
But, I love content, and I moved to Austin because I wanted to be doing film stuff. So those 2 data points are in my head. I started thinking about AR a little bit because the world is pushing that way. And it's just like, if I could get to a place where, if I could like start now thinking about the area like a mile ahead, eventually everyone's going to get a mile ahead.
Right.
But, I'll have kind of been working there already. And
You'll be 2 miles ahead.
well, but maybe I could be the person who like already knows that path and can like help people kind of get down that path, and I could start to sort it out now. So all of these things kind of started boiling together in this soup pot. I was talking about the stone soup philosophy of like people kind of bringing things together, but I was also sort of like thinking personally about like, okay, what do I have available? What are what are the skill sets that I have that I can kind of all bring into something new? Towards the end of my career at Rooster Teeth, I started, I did a rebrand for a YouTube channel called Let's Play. And there were going to be a bunch of these little micro intros, like 3 to 5 seconds. And I was going to need to find all sorts of music for these intros. And you can find a lot of music online, but finding a good 3 to 5 second sting and then finding 100 3 to 5 seconds, 100 3 to 5 second stings is really difficult. And so I plugged a guitar into my computer and just started messing with guitar effects in GarageBand. And nobody said anything. Nobody asked where the music came from. And so I just kept doing it and ended up starting to write themes for shows across Rooster Teeth. I'd played music all through high school. I'd never been in a band. I'd been in like high school band, high school jazz band. And so that became another part of the thing towards the end of my career. And so I knew that I wanted to be doing something that maybe involved some of that. So anyways, I was doing this design, not really knowing what I was working on. Designed it and kind of put it off. And, this project just kind of kept evolving. Because I wasn't even, I'd been thinking about AR, but, I didn't know exactly what it was. But yeah, probably over about 8 steps, I arrived at this thing that ended up becoming Gnosis. Uh, I started thinking about my daughter. I have a 6-year-old, and she's going to be an art school girl. I feel sorry that it's her parent. It's in her DNA
Yeah.
because of her parents. There's no escaping it. That's who she's going to become.
Mm-hmm.
And even at 6, it's like apparent that this is where it's going. And so I started thinking about her as a college kid, and thinking that she might want a shirt that says that she's strong, but she might not want a shirt that says that she's strong. And I've been watching. I've always loved John Carpenter's They Live. I don't know if you've seen the film, but it's where Shepard Fairey ends up stealing Obey from. So Roddy Piper, the wrestler, is these sunglasses that when he puts them on allows him to see that Earth has been invaded. And there's propaganda everywhere that's hidden in plain sight. Like all of the billboards, when he puts his sunglasses on, say things like Obey.
Yeah.
And it allows him to see that there's all of these aliens that look human when you don't have your sunglasses on. But when you put them on, you can see that, Earth's been invaded. So Shepard Fairey steals Obey from that. And he had been putting out these stickers that say Andre the Giant has a posse while he was at RISD. But he ends up taking Obey from that movie, and Andre the Giant has a posse evolves into Obey Giant, which is still a streetwear brand. But he could never steal the method. Like, he stole Obey, but he couldn't steal the AR part, because the reality is that's augmented reality. And so I started thinking about, like, how do you hide propaganda in plain sight?
It's a cool idea.
And how do you expand? I want to be making merchandise again. And so, like, if you could wear a motivational t-shirt that doesn't look like a motivational t-shirt, that just looks like a cool piece of streetwear.
Yeah.
Does that make you feel good about yourself? Like, if, I here's the example that I use all the time. I wouldn't sell this because it's negative and I don't want to put that out into the world. But if you could wear a shirt that said, "I hate my boss," in front of your boss.
Oh, yeah.
That's such a good idea.
What kind of agency does that give you?
Yeah.
What kind of power does that dynamic, does that create for you to be able to, sort of have one up on them? Like I said, I wouldn't sell that because I think it's negative, but like in a positive way, if you have a shirt that says that I'm strong, but it doesn't say that I'm strong, does that give you a certain, like, does it act like a mantra? Can it empower?
I like that. I like that
because I really wanted that to, sort of be a way to kind of push forward. And so No System, the name of the company, shortens down to Gnosis, which is similar to the Greek word for knowledge, which is Gnosis. And there was a cult back just after Jesus called the Gnostics, that were about hidden knowledge. The Apostles' Creed is a repudiation of the Gnostics.
I'll be right back, guys. You keep talking.
Lesson. You go. Anyways, so there's even hidden knowledge in the name. No System is the idea that maybe there's a way to push past the thing that you think is the thing, but it also shortens down to the idea that there's hidden knowledge underneath the surface. So, it was basically just a matter of taking all of these individual parts and trying to figure out a way that they combine into something new. Like you're playing with your logos, you're playing with your stone soup, or whatever. So, anyways, apologies for the super long-winded answer, but that's how we get to augmented reality. It was like trying to figure out a way to take all of those things that I loved about life at Rooster Teeth and remix and reassemble them into something that doesn't just seem like I left to start a YouTube channel.
Right. And do you, as far as dealing with, obviously, it's better because you're on medication. Do you feel like this really grabs your attention when you're doing it? Are you fully into it now, or has it been easier for you to create and to come up with ideas? Do you still struggle with that?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I was working and like I don't take medication on the weekends, and it's definitely apparent when I'm not taking medication.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, this is a real thing. Yeah, this is, because things are going well, and you'd be like, oh, this is imaginary. Maybe I don't actually have this thing, and then
Yeah.
you have a day where you're trying to sit down and focus, like, oh my God, no.
That
no,
happens with everybody. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people who are on medication when it comes to other things too. Whether it's bipolar or depression or anxiety, whatever it is, that feeling that, oh, well, everything's fine now because I'm on medication. I probably don't need this medication anymore. That's a tough
Yeah.
thing.
When I was on antidepressants in my 20s, I had been assaulted in my 20s, which is a whole other story. But ended up having to go through a bunch of therapy afterwards, and had gone on antidepressants as part of that therapy, and it helped. And I tried to go cold turkey at one point. Don't ever do that. Don't ever try and get off an antidepressant.
Yep.
Like, particularly since it builds up in your system, and that's the whole way that it works.
Right.
Stimulants work in a different way, but you shouldn't stop stimulants cold turkey
Man,
either. And
yeah.
it was very apparent that, like, oh yeah, no, I don't, I can't do that.
I had to get off Effexor when I was in my 20s, and I tried to go cold turkey, and it was pretty bad.
So I was able to wean after I did the Ironman triathlon that I did. I don't know if it was that it was so hard on my body. An Ironman, for those who aren't aware, is a 2.5 mile swim, and then you bike 112 miles, and then just to wrap up the day, you run a marathon.
I can't even imagine.
It's 140 miles over a day, or over a max of 17 hours, and I took about 16 and a half to do this 140-mile race. And it's so hard on your body that I don't know if it reset my system just because of the fact that I had basically kind of pushed myself to zero by doing this 140-mile race. But yeah, so afterwards, I didn't need the antidepressants anymore. And I'd been weaning off anyways, but
right.
I feel like that Ironman race
helps
was
you get through
significant.
Yeah.
Not advocating doing an Ironman just because of that.
Yeah.
Although I will say, even before I knew that I had ADHD, knowing that you could do something as hard as that was one of the things that I carried with me whenever I was in a stressful situation.
Right.
So if you can push yourself 140 miles, you can sit down and crunch on this project.
Right.
Crunching on this project is nothing like running a marathon after you've biked 112 miles.
Yeah.
And so that was always in the back of my head. And particularly having grown up as someone who wasn't very much a jock, I fenced through high school and I bowled my whole life, but neither one of those things is, they're definitely very athletic fencers, but like fencing for us in high school was not nearly what an Olympic fencer is like.
Right.
I went bowling the other day. I wasn't
a jock. And so having this thing that you knew you did that the jock definitely didn't do was another thing that lets you kind of like feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
Like I know there was a guy that I worked with at the public access station. Nice guy. But he was a 3-sport guy. In high school he was definitely the basketball and the football and the baseball player. And lettered in all of them. And it's just like, guess what? You have done an Ironman. And being able to have that knowledge in your head was really empowering. So maybe that played into it too. But, it's not, man, it took more than an hour and a half to get out of bed the next day. I literally couldn't move.
Man, I can't even imagine.
I lost all of my toenails
Oof.
because my feet had swollen up so much on the bike ride that my running shoes didn't fit anymore when I put them in, but I needed to get out onto the marathon course, so I had to cram my feet into the shoes. So I basically pushed my toes up against the edge of the toe box for 26 miles.
Oh, God.
So,
Man.
bloody nipples, if you've ever had that marathon experience.
Yeah.
It's
Did you carb up beforehand?
What?
Did you carb up with some chicken Alfredo? Like right before?
So it wasn't Alfredo. So not to go into like TMI. It's the only time I've ever had hemorrhoids. I was so stressed out ahead
Oh
of this
man.
experience. Oh
I
my
know all
God.
about hemorrhoids. I'm doing several videos on them right now.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and but
One
it
of our
was just like
clients.
I mean, I've been stressed in my life, but like having when I showed up so it was Ironman Wisconsin in Madison, Wisconsin. Um, and I had been a cyclist, like I had done 200-mile bike rides. That's how I came at the Ironman. Just
Hmm.
like I had this experience of doing these long distance cycling
Yeah.
events. She's like, if I can do that, I can train and figure out the other parts. Um, but it is so hard to visualize what 2.5 miles of swimming looks like.
Mhm.
Uh, and you
Yeah.
went down to this lake, and like you would see the floating markers in the water, um, and knowing that you had to go around those twice. Man, I just remember walking down to the water on race day, just bawling. Like, I'm hesitant to use the description, but it felt like going to war in a way. Like obviously not nearly like going to
Right.
war, but like
Just the
not
hurdle
knowing
ahead of
and
you.
not being able to visualize. Like, well, you can't visualize what 140 miles looks like. You have to just look at the thing in front of you.
Right.
So yeah, I'm gonna think about the swimming. I know I have to go down to the water. I'm gonna figure out how to get around the course, and I'm gonna get out of the water. Okay, I'm gonna go up to the changing room and get into my bike stuff. I'm gonna go start pedaling. Even in the midst of the bike race, you have to just think about the thing in front of you. And so that's
Yeah.
that's applied to design the rest of my life too. Just like, okay, what is the thing? What is the one thing that you need to do?
And zoning out, I imagine. I mean, the only thing that I have done like that is doing a 5K, but a 5K running, not like a 5K walk, but an actual
I've
5K.
done plenty of 5K walks.
Right. But running the entire time, training for it so that you can run the whole time. But the one thing that helps me is to not think about it when I'm doing it, to turn my brain off and be
Yeah,
like, I'm
no,
just doing it.
That's how I learned to go into flow state, was
Yeah.
through cycling. Um, because too often, particularly when you're long distance cycling, if you become completely aware of the moment, you start thinking about every pedal,
Right.
and even thinking about a mile. Um, the first
You
time
just
I
start
did a
focusing
200
on your
mile
breathing.
ride
Yeah.
You're
up in
making room
Minnesota,
for breathing.
there was this race called the Paul Bunyan Double Century, and there's a lake in Minnesota called Lake Mille Lacs, and it's big enough that you can't see to the other side of it. It's about 20 miles around, so it's a big lake, um, and it's also farmland, and there's a lot of like barren, empty farmland while you're riding. And so, if you've ever ridden through an empty field, you can kind of feel like you're not moving. And
Yeah.
so, being in the middle of this, where you have, I knew that I had 80 miles to go, and I had a cycling computer in front of me, and you start running the calculations like, oh, I just slowed down a mile per hour. That just added an hour to my ride today.
Oh
Um,
God. Yeah.
and so the only way to survive that is to figure out how to shut your brain off.
Hmm.
Not that you're shutting your brain off, but like you go into flow state, and you allow the moment to just exist. The same thing happens on the Ironman. The same thing happens when I'm doing good design. I needed to learn how to go into that state, and learning how to go into that state while I was running or cycling, that's never happened while I'm swimming. I was never able to get into that moment. In fact, my freestyle is so awful that when I did the Ironman course, I ended up backstroking, and doing about an extra half mile because I'm zigzagging around the course, which blew my legs out. And you have to bike and run the rest of the
Oh
day.
God, I
So,
can't even imagine. Can't. I just
uh,
can't.
but talking about carb loading, the day after, we went to, once we finally got up, I walked down the stairs of our hotel, and there was someone in the lobby. He's like, "Oh, you did the Ironman yesterday." I'm just like, how do you know? It's like, "Oh, well, you're doing the Ironman shuffle." Because I could sort of barely move, and I still looked
Mhm.
like an old man, walking down the stairs, and we walked next door to this Perkins restaurant, and I ordered a tremendous 12, which is this giant breakfast. 3 pancakes, 3 eggs, 3 pieces of bacon, 3 sausage. I eat that. About a half hour later, I'm starving, and we go
Man.
to the awards banquet, and they have a big Alfredo platter buffet, and I have this giant plate of bread and pasta and chicken and chow down. The awards banquet ends, and my friend that raced the race with me and I are leaving, driving out of Madison, and suddenly I'm starving again. I've probably eaten 3 or 4 thousand calories at this point, and I'm starving again. And so we stop in at a cousin sub, and I order this giant chicken sub. And finally, after the chicken sub, I was satiated. But
Man,
yeah, well,
you know,
I mean, I burned like 30,000 calories that day.
good Lord. Yeah, no, you know what it kind of reminds me of actually is another topic I wanted to bring up. Along the lines of powering through something, carving your own path, if you will. This is something that has come up with some friends this week, and some other people we're working with multiple times, and we kept talking about this same topic, and I'm like, well, all these people have kind of run across the same thing, and we've been talking about the same thing, so this would probably be a good show topic, which is, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. That's come up so much lately, and it's not just about others that are delivering and you haven't. But also whether or not you're doing it wrong. You're not good enough. Kind of like along the lines of imposter syndrome, but not exactly. Number one, feeling like everyone is constantly delivering, because that's all you see online. There's so many people that are just posting, and maybe they're just posting one thing. There's just one thing they post, but it's the combination of those one posts times however many followers or how many people you're following times times however many platforms you on. There's like to you, when you look at it, there's like, well, that's 100 things I didn't do today because all those people did those things. So that means I didn't do 100 things. No, each person posted one thing, and maybe that's the only time they posted this month or this week or something like that. There's like a saturation of Mograph when you surround yourself with Mograph. And that's just how it is, because you add those types of people. And this is a small industry. And everyone has a Gumroad. Everyone has the Instagram full of renders, just people making tutorials. And you start worrying about, oh, well, how do I stand out in this? Am I just another cog or whatever? And this is where that whole stick-to-itiveness, I hate that, but, getting through it, pushing through it, getting in the zone like you're in a marathon and you're just trying to tune out and do your thing and get it done. That's where that comes into play, because my second and main point on this is that you have to stop worrying about what other people are doing. Oh, they posted.
Yeah, I mean, you psych yourself out.
Yeah, you do. You totally you psych yourself out. You say, oh, they posted something similar to this idea that I had for a daily. Well, I guess I can't do that now. It would be copying. If someone had the same idea for a tutorial, or I had an idea for a tutorial and somebody already did it, well, I guess I can't do it now. But I think you have to push that out of your mind, and you have to power through. And, you can still do those things. Nobody's going to be upset to see 2 renders of something. Nobody's going to be upset because you recorded a tutorial your own way. It's the analogy that EJ posted a while back, I think, which was a bakery with 2 cakes. There's 2 bakeries next door to each other. They both have cakes. They're both done different ways. And the 2 bakeries, the people there are like, oh man, they did kind of the same cake that I did, but nobody's thinking that, and nobody comes up to the window and says, well, that depends. Who made the cake first?
Right.
They come up to the windows and they say, oh my God, 2 cakes. So,
right.
Maybe people will like your render better. Maybe they will prefer your teaching style. Maybe will do it better than the person who's already doing it. You just don't know. And the only way to find out is to do your own thing. When there's does one render engine come out and then they say, oh, well, I guess there can't be any other render engines because one was already made. It can be good.
Yeah.
It can be good for competition as far as like features, but there are like small things involved and different goals for different companies and things like that. We've
oh, sorry. I mean, I had a realization the other day. Like I mentioned that I just started using Octane. And like, there had definitely been some inferiority complex from like seeing people add detail to things. You're like, oh my God, wow, look at the amount of information in that design, and not realizing that this is all textural and this is all stuff that's being added through other things. Like this is just because of the methodology of how they're doing what they're doing. Like this is, I mean, it's not that they're not talented, but it's not like they're modeling every single one of those things. They're like, no, that is a JS placement, and they created a texture that's adding all of that megastructure stuff. I mean, and so trying to figure out like how you do that thing when you don't know the magic trick, suddenly it seems like a superpower of this designer, when in reality they're using a different set of tools than you have.
And they pick one over the other for different reasons, and I'm glad there isn't just one render engine,
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we talk to Jules a lot. We've been over to the office a lot, and he is very much thinking 1,000 steps ahead at any given time. You can tell that he's always thinking about the next thing, and that he's concentrating though on his own plan. It's his own end goal, and that's good. Yeah. Other things happen, and I feel like it in any industry that can get to you when other people are doing all of these things. And I had this issue working on the Houdini course. I'm sitting there editing it, trying to get it done. In the meantime, GSG came out with their first Houdini
course.
And I'm like, oh, I guess just shut down the process. They released something already, and you sit there thinking about it, and then that's when the self-doubt comes in. Will theirs be better? I got beat to it. Nobody will want this now. You lose the concentration, and you lose sleep because other people are doing this and that, and people are telling you, and they hit you up, or even if you're on a team and the whole team is together and they're like, oh man, this thing happened and someone else is doing this a different way and it's similar to us, or they beat us to it. And it's fine. But I had to shut it down in my own mind, tell myself to push it out of my mind, treat it like any other distraction, pretend that this stuff doesn't exist. I'm going to do this my way. So what that means is you do you. Press on, shut off the distraction, forget what everybody else is doing, carve your path the way that you originally intended, stick with your plan. Don't let everybody else's work make you second guess your own goals either, Stay on that path. If everybody did everything the same way everybody else was doing it, then we'd all be super generic and nobody would stand out at all. Your stuff is only unique when it's your version of what you want to do.
Yeah, I had a friend. I had an industry friend last year psych me out a little bit. Admittedly, like, I'm going through some transition stuff. I'm like still probably not normal. Like, I had not settled down from this transition. I was probably acting a little crazy. But, I had been talking about, feeling like I needed to become more of a influencer. I hate that term.
Oh, I know. I do too. I do.
Yeah.
But like, and he came back, was like, why would you want, the industry has enough industry, influencers. I was just like, but it completely psyched me out. And took my eye off the ball of running my own race. It took me a while to be able to kind of get back to equilibrium. It hit a lot harder than it probably should, because I care a lot about this person. When in reality, they were trying to figure out how to run their own race too.
Right.
So, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I definitely went through some of the same things you were talking about when I was working on the After Effects course that I did for Film Riot this year. It's like, really another 101 class? I mean, there's stuff out there already. But when I look at the class that I did for Film Riot, I'm really proud of it, because it's a very different angle than a lot of one-on-one classes. Because instead of teaching basics, I treated it like a junior sitting with me in my office.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, these are the basics, but like this is how I would approach this shot, and these are the things that I'm looking at and the things that I'm thinking about. Because I'll go and watch a lot of audio tutorials online where they're talking to maybe a mix engineer like Chris Lord-Alge, and it might be an intro thing, but he's also kind of walking through his methodology. And even if I'm not ready for that, being able to kind of soak in that a little bit ends up helping me make the leap. So and I hadn't seen as much of that on intro motion design courses.
But to compare it again to running a race, when you were running your race, how often were you really thinking about what everybody else was doing? I mean, you got your own set of problems. You got your own finish line you're trying to get to when you're running a race. And maybe you notice that the other people are there, but man, you're in pain. You're trying to get through your deal. You're trying to push things out of your head. And man, what somebody else is doing is probably not going to be your biggest priority. You just have to get to the end.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, at the end of the day, the only thing I was thinking about was how I was going to pay my mortgage the next month. I mean, that's been the big thing. And honestly, like 2 years, heading into, like it'll be 2 years in April, or, when NAB comes around, from when this transition started taking place. And like getting used to living in the ambiguity, it's a big part of that race. It's just like being okay with the fact that you're not done and you don't know exactly when the race is going to be done. But you need to be okay with being where you are right now. Like,
you have to be.
I don't have March lined up with work. I know that there's going to be work of some sort. I didn't know exactly what February looked like, and I had a film approach me the other day about doing some titles. I was like,
there you go.
Okay, well,
yeah,
it's like it's gonna be February, leading up to Signal, and like honestly, Signal and getting ready for the next Gnosis drop are kind of two of the main things right now. But there's freelance. I mean, freelance obviously comes before everything else. So I mean, there's room for paid work.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was, so going back to Gnosis. I mean, that was the other thing that I knew I needed to do as I transitioned. You're talking about ADHD and all the other things. Having something that can be the thing when there's something not going on. Like it was just like I need to build a system to know that if I don't have anything going on, I just default back to having a project that I'm working on.
Right.
Because otherwise, you start to go a little stir crazy.
Yeah.
Like, where's the work from? What's going on? It's just like I have this eternal project that's never going to be done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's milestones that make me feel good about having done something. So like there's many, because Gnosis, is all about merchandise designs. If you finish a design, that's a little win.
It's just one more
dopamine burst of having accomplished something.
Right.
So there's I've been expounding a lot lately, and kind of made a joke a couple weeks ago when Calvary came into beta. Cavalry. Having grown up in the church, I hear Calvary a lot.
Yeah.
But Mark Duplass gave a talk, bringing it all back around to South by Southwest again. He gave a keynote at South by Film a few years ago called "The Cavalry Isn't Coming," because in the indie film industry, you guys have totally heard the story of someone who like expected to hit it big, like they took their film to Sundance and they sold it and now they have a Hollywood career. He gave this talk, the cavalry isn't coming, nobody's coming to help you. Like, you just need to get it into your head that there is no savior coming to save you. You need to just generate your own stuff. You are your own savior. Not that there won't be opportunities to do things, But like, so he talks about this $5 shitty film. Like, he's like, go make something and put it out, and then go make another thing and put it out. And like his model was like, you need to go take that to a film festival, and you need to go to as many of those festivals as you can because that's where you meet the other people. And then you need to maybe parlay some of those relationships that you built into getting them into your next production. Yeah. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, now you made a slightly bigger film and you got that. Is the cavalry coming now? Nope, nobody's coming. You might get some buzzes from some people, but at the end of the day, you're going to be the only person who's going to continue to push your career.
Right.
That's for sure.
And so, knowing that I was going to build this next thing was just like, okay, Gnosis is a way that, I can start to build something that I can continue to pour into.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some bigger projects and there are going to be some smaller projects. I have a couple of shirts that are in the next launch that are these like skull fruits that I started working on that were part of a silly project that I did last year where, they were doing a 90210 reboot and I was teaching myself object tracking in cinema. And so I found a piece of stock footage of a girl in a bikini, like sort of laying down on the grass in a park. And I popped her head off and replaced it with a banana. Just dumb. I wanted something that didn't look like a sphere because you can't track a sphere. Right. I mean, you can't see if a sphere is working very well because it's a sphere. If a sphere is turning, right, did it turn? So I was like, oh, I'll use a banana because I know if a banana is locked onto the head, like it's a banana shape. And so I had this banana-headed lady, and then that started investigation into. It's like, I wonder if I could create a little short where, it's sort of like a 90210 open, but then in the middle it goes very Adult Swim and just basically turns into it's like, can I take footage of someone making a fruit smoothie and make it seem like a horror movie? Just like, and so, there's this fake open with all of these fruit people, and then in the middle, the music like kind of breaks down like a record breaking or something, and it cuts to this, warped, fruit smoothie video, and it's like the horror of a fruit smoothie. Anyways, so I had in the AR portion of that, I had these little pieces of fruit with angel wings that were floating up out of the video, and it sort of expanded out into these fruit skulls that have now become their own designs. And those are small. They're not. I mean, they're little like phrase-sized designs. If you're writing a story, this is a sentence. It's not a paragraph. It's just a silly little fragment of something. But then there's this other design that I really love and I'm excited to finish. That's about this chicken girl that's sitting in front of a door that in Japanese says karagi, which is Japanese fried chicken. Which is sort of ironic to have this little punk chicken girl sitting in front of a fried chicken building. Anyways. So there's this whole little animated short that's part of that I've been working on. That's had me. I feel like I've been living in Tokyo for the last month as I've been using photogrammetry and other things to rebuild Tokyo for this short. Not all of Tokyo, but rebuild Tokyo for this animatic that I created, and that's a full little 40-second animated short that will be a short on its own, but will also be, a T-shirt and a design. So, anyways, I built a machine to be able to just kind of keep pushing things out there. And the Roger Corman part of it is like, once I built the machine, trying to figure out how to market it and grow it. I had this thought that, maybe I could work with other designers to having been at Rooster Teeth and been in this place where I knew how merchandising works. I mean, that's something that a lot of motion designers don't know how to do. And if I could help them leverage that to start to be able to take some of the things that they're doing already and monetize them in a better way. It's like, oh, hey, you have that really cool daily that you did. That's cool, but you could push it just a little bit farther and turn it into a sticker or a design. And I know how to do that. I could help you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps me because it raises the visibility of the thing that I'm doing, but it helps them because they get to do something that they might not otherwise have done. And I get to be in the position that I could push them because I could see that they could do it, and they might not see that they can do it because that's the thing that I've always appreciated. You know, I've had those people in my life. You know, when I went into medical device marketing, I had a really good friend who was doing medical communications. I hadn't done any of that, but she thought that I could do it, and she gave me the opportunity to do it, and gave me the opportunity to do a lot of other things along with that. I couldn't picture myself as that. And so, you know, to be in a place in my career where I could maybe start to do that for some other people. You know, again, going back to the stone soup thing, you end up creating something out of individual parts that's bigger than the parts.
Right.
And, you know,
and with what you have. Yeah.
Yeah. Or, you know, that's my theory that you can build a career out of that. Maybe that's bunk, but you know, it seems like it's a positive thing to push into.
Yeah.
And, you know, I want to see whether that's, you know, I really want to test that philosophy.
Well, Matt only has about 5 minutes before his hard out, and we have we want to get to the Mograph recommends questions with you real quick. It's going to have to be really fast, but I definitely want to try and get that in before we have to go. All right. So I hope you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, here we go. What is your favorite movie?
Man, that is a really hard one. Although I will default to the Hudsucker Proxy by the Coen brothers.
It's such a good movie.
If only because there's some amazing miniatures work in that movie.
I knew nothing about that movie and just so happened to catch it on TV one day, knowing absolutely nothing, and was totally amazed and just blown away at how good of a movie that was. Yeah.
The side recommendation would be a film called Fish Story. It's a Japanese film. Look it up.
I've heard of
how
that.
a punk song saves the world.
Okay.
Maybe I heard about that from you.
My life.
And then what about music on that note?
You know, that's a
top favorite.
Tastes are all over the place. I've been listening to a lot of Tycho again lately in the background. You know, one of the best South by experiences that I had a couple of years ago was a concert where we actually slept on stage in an orchestra hall. There's a guy named Max Richter who's a film composer who did an 8-hour symphony called Sleep. And it's meant to be listened to while you're sleeping.
Weird.
You can find the album on Spotify. It's some of the music that I listen to when I need to chill. It almost instantly calms me.
I'm gonna have to check that one out.
Listen to that.
Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of Titus Andronicus. Is a punk band that I like. I love the Hold Steady. You know, those are probably really influential when I'm working on music for Gnosis. But you know, my tastes are all over the map. A lot of girl punk. You know.
All right. What about TV show?
So I freelance and build a startup. I don't watch nearly as much as I want to, but I'm going to go tell people to watch Amazon's Undone because I think it's probably one of the most profound animated series that's been done in recent years.
All right. Podcast, favorite podcast?
And I don't have to say Mograph.
No, you don't have to say us.
No, lately it's probably been Creative Pep Talk. But I would say, so Creative Pep Talk is, there's a guy named Andy J. Pizza, who's an illustrator. He also has ADHD, and as I've been sort of processing, that's been one of those things that's been really helpful to kind of understand. So Creative Pep Talk, I would say I listen to Tim Ferriss' show a lot. There's a Jordan Harbinger show, which is a psychology thing that I listen to a lot. And then probably 15 or 20 other things. But, you know, those are the regular rotations every week.
Cool. I'd like to see stats for podcasts and YouTube videos on audience retention for ADD videos.
I don't know. I'd be curious.
Let's see. Plugin. What's your go-to plugin besides a render engine?
Besides a render engine,
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be in 3D. I mean, it could even be like
no.
Chrome
I've been using SuperComp a lot. It's kind of weird, and once you get used to it, like it makes sense. But like it's really useful, and you know, I've loved the little comps that I've thrown together in it. So SuperComp, go use it. Go get Red Giant Complete. You know, I've done some tutorial stuff for them, so you know, I'm biased, but I love all those guys. You know, you were talking about what to call Maxon at the beginning. When you're talking about the sponsors, the only thing that I felt slightly bad about in terms of Maxon and Red Giant getting together is I felt like I was a little sad that I didn't know people at two companies anymore.
I know, right?
I know. I'm sad I can't
have
hit up
friends
two
at
different
one
companies for sponsorships anymore.
Right.
Yeah, and that was the only, because they're both very influential in the community. So
Yeah.
it's like, I'm really happy for you and sad for me in that way. I got a tiny amount of less influence. Not that that's true, but anyways.
What about headphones?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So
Matt's only got a couple
Classic
minutes.
Sony's.
Yeah,
the Sony
classic.
MDR 7506s are the generic headphones that I recommend. If you don't have a pair of engineering headphones, you need a pair of those.
Yeah.
Or something of their ilk, because it should be in every kit.
Yeah, totally.
I've also got a pair of AKG K701s, which I really like. They sound really good, but they're open muff, and so if you're sitting next to people, they're not particularly great. But you know, those
Yeah.
Sonys, they're so killer for the price.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, your go-to app. What go-to app to use on your phone?
I mean, I'm probably on Slack more than anything else. That's
Well,
not a
good
great
one.
recommendation.
That's a good one.
You know, I've got at that concert that I went to, it's out, the 8-Hour Symphony, it was sponsored by Beauty Rest, and they brought beds
That's
into
funny.
the orchestra hall that they donated to the homeless afterwards, but they
that's
gave
cool.
everybody the sleep tracker that they were making.
Mm.
When you left, it was like $100 sleep tracker or something, and so I've got that on my bed, and it kind of gives me feedback every night on how I slept. And so sleep tracker by Beauty Rest, there you go. There's one other app that's not a normal suggestion.
And now here's the hard one. This is the last one, the hard one. Your favorite life hack.
Favorite life hack?
I have a good one.
Trying to say yes when you can, you know, knowing that in general something is going to lead to something else.
No, that's the fastest I think anybody's come up with the life hack before. Usually everybody needs an example.
Listen to the show enough times, you know what
You
your
know, I
life hack's
feel
gonna
like
be.
that's, well, but I feel like that's the whole point of this episode. It's just like everything is led to something else.
Right.
And it's always about to tie things together and figuring out how to make something out of what you have available. And, you know, throughout my career, all of the good things that have happened to me have happened because I said yes.
Right.
Yep.
That's good. That's good. Not as that. Mine is nowhere near as good as that one. I came up with one the other day that I was like, oh, I should mention it. Now, this might be a given for some people, but whenever I get gas, I get bored. Do you ever get gas and you get bored? Because it just takes
No, 'cause I have
forever.
my phone next to me. the
Yeah,
whole
but
time.
sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this pump is going. You know, you go to the pump and it's one of those. It just happens to be going
It
really
just was
slow.
really slow.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And I even have like an app where I keep track of my gas mileage and all that, and I type it all
Yeah,
in.
you do.
But like, but still, like I'll type it in and then I'm like, all right, I got 6 more minutes here. I don't really want to get on my phone. So here's my hack. And it's so simple. Go through your car and get all the
Oh.
garbage out of it. There's a trash can
yeah.
literally right there at every pump.
Yeah.
Go through and grab the cans and grab the bottles and the pieces of paper and the straw wrapper and the stuff that the kid left in the car on the floor that's
Yeah.
trash and the
My wife does
Cheerios
that.
and the receipts. just do that, and by the time you're done,
anytime I go to pump her
is done.
gas, she's like, "Here, throw this away too."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
hands me just a whole bunch of stuff before I even get to the gas tank.
I have
should
another
do that
one.
more often than I do.
I have another one, but I'll save it. Okay, Matt's got to go pick up his kid.
Yes, I do.
Kid,
So we got
I'm
to.
sorry for talking so much.
No,
We didn't
dude.
Get to,
It's all
Nah, dude,
good.
we love you.
We got to tons of stuff, man. What are you talking about? We got to all sorts of stuff. Man, we
Well,
really
thank you for having
appreciate
me.
you.
Fine.
Yeah, we appreciate you being on. We're going to see you next month, hopefully. I'll come down for that.
Yeah, I'm excited to come up for Barton's thing. I'm excited for DFW. I just, one of my big things, LA and New York are cool. Nothing against either one of them. But, so here in Austin, the Media ATX organization that I was talking about, his sort of philosophy is that when you look at Houston and Dallas and San Antonio and Austin combined, they are as big a market as either one of those cities. And we don't have nearly as much influence as we probably should have over the central corridor of the U.S.
We'll get there.
From a media perspective. And so it's just like, I want to do what I can to support what you guys are doing up there. And that's kind of what all of my work around here is about, is trying to build those communities so that we can start doing the things that we really should be doing.
Yeah.
And taking on the roles that we need to be taking on.
So also, if people want to find you online,
Behm.com is my website. Behm Creative, Behm Creative is my social media handles, Instagram and Twitter. Gnosis Knows, NOSYSKNOWS on social media. The website is also gnosisKnows.com. If they use code Mograph, then you can get 25% off.
oh snap!
Not the only way to get 25% off. You sign up for the mailing list, you'll get a coupon too. I don't think they stack. But yeah, sign up. There is going to be some new releases soon. I'm really excited about some of the stuff that we're going to do this year. So I feel like this year is going to unroll a bunch of Gnosis stuff. And if you have the first weekend of South by Southwest free, even though I can't tell you everything that's going to happen, Signal's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, well, we're going to get out of here. You can rate us on iTunes, leave a review, helps get our ratings up. You can also subscribe on your podcatcher of choice. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter as well. We got a lot of info going out here, especially in the next couple months and leading up to NAB. Make sure you get subscribed to that newsletter for all the updates. You can say you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt with the Mograph logo tee, the Paul Babb Feel the Bab 2020 shirt, which I'm wearing right now. Super old, super old. Look at this. Look, the sleeve tore. The sleeve tore. For some reason, I've had it for so long, and it wasn't a quality issue. It's just like it was getting old, and I got to get another one.
What is that? Almost 4 years now?
Oh yeah,
'Cause
this is an old shirt. Yeah.
Yeah.
But get yourself this shirt. All the profits from that go to Doctors Without Borders. What else we got? The Render Things t-shirt, hoodie, long sleeve tee, and I think and then of course the That Render is Fire shirt, which you are only allowed to wear ironically. You're like, nah, whatever, yo. But I think that about wraps it up. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, we are on Periscope, of course YouTube and Mograph.com, and of course on TikTok now as well. So, so
dumb.
hit us up. Yeah.
TikTok's stupid.
Yeah. So that about wraps it up, though. Until next week, I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Brian.
Have a good one.
Later, yo. Hey, 2.5 hours on the dot.
Nice. Perfect.
Save as.
All right, everybody.
221?
221. 220, 221.
21 and 8?
What is it? 220, 220, 221? Whatever works.
I'm hitting stop.